Good evening. Welcome to the September meeting of the Vacaville Planning Commission. I would like to call a regular Planning Commission meeting to order and ask Clerk Tillotson to please call the roll.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Chair Klein.
Here.
Vice Chair Fortney.
Here.
Commissioner Vargas.
Here.
Commissioner Lightfoot.
Here.
Commissioner Labonte. Commissioner Rudine. Here. Commissioner Wilkerson.
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Clerk Tillotson. We will now present the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you please stand? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll now have item 3, which is communications. Staff, are there any communications for this evening's meeting?
Thank you, Chair Klein. We have not received any communications.
Wonderful. Appreciate it. I believe we have all reviewed the agenda. Do we have a motion for approval of the agenda?
We have a motion.
Is there a second? It was moved by Vice Chair Fortney, seconded by Commissioner Lightfoot. Will the clerk please call the roll, or the vote?
Commissioner Vargas.
Yes.
Commissioner Lightfoot.
Yes.
Commissioner Rudine.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkerson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Fortney.
Yes.
Chair Klein.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. So, do we have outcome?
6 yes.
Thank you. I might have missed that. I appreciate that. We'll now take business from the floor. This is the time to address the commission with issues that are not on the agenda, that are within the commission's subject matter jurisdiction. There is a time limit of 3 minutes per speaker. Does anyone wish to address the commission regarding a topic or issue that is not before us this evening? Okay. I will close business from the floor. And with that, we will take the consent calendar, item 6. We have one item on the consent calendar, the minutes of the August 30th meeting. If you were not at that meeting, that was a special meeting of the commission, then you should abstain from voting on the consent calendar. So I myself will abstain from voting. If there are others, I would encourage you to do so as well. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Moved by Vice Chair Fortney. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Rudine. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Commissioner Vargas.
Yes.
Commissioner Lightfoot.
Yes.
Commissioner Rudine.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkerson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Fortney.
Yes.
Chair Klein.
Abstain.
5 to 1. Pass.
Thank you very much. We will now move to item 7, presentation. This evening we have Mr. Don Burris, our Director of Economic Development Services. He'll give a presentation regarding the city's biotechnology and advanced manufacturing initiative, item 7A. Director Burris.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, excuse me. Good evening, Commissioners. Don Burris, Director of Economic Development Services here. Very happy to be here this evening to give you all an update on the city's biotechnology and advanced manufacturing initiative. Actually, give me just a moment. I'm going to pull up a different presentation. I'm sorry, I'm looking for version. Oh, no worries, no worries. Appreciate it. Okay, here we go. Just by way of background for our discussion this evening, just going to cover a few key topics for you very quickly. My counterpart, Matt Gardner, who is the consultant that helped us develop the strategy in 2019, actually, he's stuck in traffic right now on his way from Fairfield, but his ETA is 6:15. So he is our, chairman of the board for the California Biomanufacturing Center. So my presentation is really going to cover what we've been doing as a city. And then the second half of the presentation will actually be Matt covering the work that he's been doing on behalf of the city as the California Biomanufacturing Center. So most likely he should arrive somewhere during the middle of my presentation. So our discussion topics this evening, I'm going to provide a little background on how we got to where we are today, the completion of the phases, because our initiative has been developed in 3 phases, share with you some of the early successes we've had, and then talk about implementing phase 3. And then finally, as I said just a moment ago, we'll have Matt Gardner, chairman of the California Biomanufacturing Center, give an update on their efforts as well. By way of background, so June 25th, 2019, the City Council authorized the development of our Biotechnology and Advanced Manufacturing Initiative. This initiative really is an economic development initiative to help grow our biomanufacturing hub here in the city of Vacaville. Most residents and most businesses are not aware that our biomanufacturing hub is literally 30 years old. It didn't start with Genentech. Genentech actually probably would be one of the newer companies moving in. But we've had 3 or 4 biotech companies that have been here literally for almost 30 years. As I mentioned earlier, Matt Gardner at the time, before he started working with us at the CBC, was the principal consultant that we brought on board to help us develop the strategy. Matt and I have a relationship that goes back to Silicon Valley when we both worked on creating the San Jose Biocenter, which was one of the first bioinnovation centers in the Bay Area. Now there are several. Matt also created what is now California Life Science, but then it was called Bay Bio, which is an industry organization for all the life science companies and a membership organization. So we held several focus groups with members of a variety of biotechnology companies, not just biomanufacturing, but also research and design companies as well, to get some feedback, to understand, well, first of all, is there any there? What our city is proposing, is there a possibility for success? And I love telling this part of the story because the focus group said overwhelmingly yes in what took us so long. So the strategy was developed in 3 phases, and I'll go through those three phases as well. And the initiative was kicked off in October 2020. Congressman John Garamendi came in town. We did our kickoff at the Solano College Biotechnology Center. Very well attended and very well received. So phase 1, which was basically plan development. All of the things we needed to do to actually develop the strategy, working with our biotechnology partners here in Vacaville, as well as in South San Francisco and throughout the Central Bay Area, to get feedback from them to make sure that we knew we were actually looking in the right direction. Phase 2 was creating the foundations. So what is the strategy really, what's it composed of? What are we actually targeting? And what we realized through both of these phases to develop the strategy is biomanufacturing is our niche here in Vacaville. Why? Because we have the most available land in the entire Bay Area and actually the most affordable land in the entire Bay Area. Something that is really prohibiting a lot of growth in the rest of the Central Bay now because of the availability of the land and the cost of the land. So we're very clear when we say biomanufacturing as opposed to biotechnology, because biotechnology usually refers to drug discovery, and that's really not the type of companies we're looking to attract. We're actually looking for people that are manufacturing product. because the cost to build those type of facilities, it's so expensive. It's going to be very rare that someone would lease a facility and put $120 million in tenant improvements in that and still lease. So we knew that by focusing on biomanufacturing, one, a lot more jobs, a lot higher paying jobs, and the opportunity to really be able to build larger facilities because of our availability of land and our land cost. So that's how we got to why our strategy is really focusing on biomanufacturing. And then phase 3 is technically the phase that we're in right now, which is implementation. So I know this is kind of after the fact, but we are actually in the middle of phase 3, which includes a lot of our marketing and attraction efforts. So basically telling Vacaville's story through numerous industry publications and media outlets. I shared this with our city council as well. Although you all don't see our marketing and attraction efforts, because our efforts are really in very specialized journals and publications to that industry. So every now and then you might see an article maybe in the San Francisco Business Times, but generally that's not the audience. And we're being very, very targeted with our marketing efforts, as well as just being very conscientious about how we're spending those dollars. So we really want to be able to make sure that we're reaching our target audience. And marketing through the more traditional channels, through the more traditional publications, that's great so that the public is aware, but we're really trying to make sure that we get in front of all the decision makers. We also had an opportunity to participate in several trade shows this year. In April, we made our way down to San Francisco for the American Biomanufacturing Summit. Worked out really well for us. It was good to see that our marketing efforts were paying off. Many of the companies that we had one-on-one meetings with were already aware of our initiative and what we were trying to accomplish, which really let us just cut to the chase and have conversations about where they were with their businesses and would Vacaville be a viable option for them. Later that year in May, we ended up in San Francisco again with the San Francisco Business San Francisco Business Times Biotech Forum. This would be the third year that we participated in the forum. Gives us an opportunity again to get in front of all of the Bay Area executives who attend this particular forum. And once again, our marketing efforts had paid off. They were very aware of us. This year we actually had an exhibit space outside of the forum, and again had some great conversations with companies that were looking to expand their operations and potentially bring those operations to Vacaville. Then we rounded up with, in June, myself, the city manager, Jim DeClos, who's been a champion with us from Solano College. If you're not familiar with Jim, Jim actually created the biotechnology program at Solano College some 25 years ago, knows literally everyone in the industry. So Jim, myself, the city manager, and Tim Patton headed down to the Bio International Conference, which literally is one of the largest conferences in the world in San Diego this past June. We had some great success, came back with a very, very long list of potential companies looking for space. And once again, was great to work with the Solano Community College, as having Jim in our booth with us was a big win. Literally, people walking by knew Jim. Almost every other person knew Jim. So we had more than enough conversation. I think Vacaville is out there now, and people know that we're really trying to expand our biomanufacturing hub. Earlier in the year, also the council approved a contract with us to work with the CBC to help with lead generation. So Matt Gardner has a wealth of knowledge and a very large Rolodex, I should say, with companies that he's been lining us up with, very specifically those companies that, again, are looking to expand operations. And it's been great to work with him as well. We've been doing numerous site tours. So if you guys, I know you guys probably see me around the city all the time dragging somebody in tow, but the companies are literally coming up to Vacaville. I have an opportunity to show them our city as well as show them the sites where they could potentially expand their operations. I think some of our successes really have come from the industry recognizing, and I can't emphasize this even more because it's not just the work that my team is doing to bring these companies to Vacaville, but the reality is Vacaville actually has a winning value proposition. We have great talent that already exists in our city. We have a great program with the Solano Community College. We have, again, I'll say the most affordable and the most amount of land in the entire Bay Area. Those are all winning value propositions, and that makes Vacaville a real player in this industry. So the reason why this next slide is labeled early success is because these successes came before we actually officially rolled out our attraction efforts. Literally 2 months after we made the announcement, we were in conversation with Agenus Bio. About 4 months into conversation, they decided to acquire 120 acres in our Vacaville Business Park. For all the residents here in Vacaville, that would be that large piece of land that we all drive by on Interstate 80 that's right behind Kaiser Hospital. It's those 120 acres. Shortly after Agenus Bio acquired those lands, Polaris Pharmaceuticals, one of our own Vacaville companies, reached out to say that they were ready to expand their facility and build a larger facility. So then they acquired 15 acres of the 120 acres from Agenus. And we'll be talking with them shortly, too, about expanding their facilities. Then, shortly after Polaris purchased their properties, Transwestern Ventures, which is a Texas biotech development firm who's built the country's largest college research park in Texas, that has many of the universities in partnership, Baylor, University of Houston, that are part of this. They reached out, and they also were interested in building some property here in Vacaville, so they acquired 22 acres of that same 120 acres. So again, this all has just happened within the last year and a half. And I do have to preface this, having been in this industry now in the public sector for over 17 years, I can tell you all that we have never closed deals this fast in my entire career. Normally, I have to dance with a company for 1 to maybe 2 years before they actually pull the trigger. So again, I'll say I think the reason these deals close so quickly is because Vacaville has a solid value proposition. Then later this year, we had a great success on the other side of our strategy, which is not just solely focused on biomanufacturing, but also on advanced manufacturing. So what does that mean to you when I say advanced manufacturing? So in the biotechnology industry, that could be medical device companies, companies that do fill and finish. Probably the most common medical device I think everyone would be able to recognize is if you've seen those commercials for a product called Libra. It's a little white disc that people are putting on their shoulders. They use their cell phones to check their glucose levels. That would be an example, the most basic example of a medical device. And also with devices, we have instrumentation products. So we're very happy to welcome, just actually 2 weeks ago, Mettler Toledo Rainin to Vacaville. They actually purchased a 90,000 square foot building right off of Midway Road in our Interchange Business Park, literally in front of the new Amazon Fulfillment Center. Very happy to have Mettler Toledo Rainin in our community. They make a product called pipettes. So I'm going to take you back to high school chemistry. A pipette is that little device you use to take one liquid and put it into a test tube. Mettler Toledo Rainin literally is the Cadillac of pipettes. So really happy to be able to have them in our community. They said some wonderful things, Ms. Morris, about your planning department, how easy it was to work with them, how we were able to get them in on time. We made a promise and we were able to keep our promise. So thank you to our planning department as well as Public Works for really helping them get through the process quickly. Our last success, and I'm using this as an success, but hopefully we'll know for sure here in the next few weeks. But we've been in conversations with a Korean company called LG Chem. And yes, it's the same LG that we're all familiar with washers and dryers and refrigerators. But they make numerous products, and they actually have a life science division. We've been talking with LG Chem now for about 4 months. They've come out and they've done one tour of the community. They came back a few months later with their president of the Life Science Division, and we conducted another tour. This time we had a chance to stop in at Solano College and let the president and that staff meet with Jim DeClos. I think one of the biggest pluses for our community is the fact that we are actually producing the talent, not just for the Bay Area, but for almost the whole Pacific Northwest. Solano College can't graduate enough students fast enough to meet the demand of this industry. So we should hopefully know something here in the next 30 days on whether or not LG Chem will be our next biotechnology company neighbor here in Vacaville. More to come. So a little bit about where the industry is. Between 2022 and 2030, the industry is expected to grow at a rate of about 13% annually. That's over $1 billion a year in that industry. So to put that in perspective, globally, the industry is about $23 billion, but in the US, we're looking at a $19 billion industry. So this growth rate is unprecedented. But I think we're actually in a very good position. Thanking the mayor and council for allowing Ms. Morris and I to start work on the Northeast growth area. There's more opportunity for our city and more opportunity for more companies to locate here in Vacaville. So to be clear too, why this industry is so important to our economy, this is one of the industries where literally it is a ladder from the bottom to the top. Our students can graduate from high school and actually have a job in the biotechnology industry with something as little as just what they call in the industry as a dishwasher and still make at least a $60,000 annual salary. With an associate's degree or even a certificate program, they can move up to 80. There is nothing but opportunity in this industry for our residents and our students here. And with Solano College in our backyard, it's the perfect training ground for anyone that's really interested in getting into the industry. So more to come. We are actually in our due diligence period now with another medical device company based in Florida and Georgia. They're actively looking at building another facility here in Vacaville to produce their diagnostic products. And we're just met again today with a biotech innovation company. One of the things that we know that would round out the whole ecosystem for us here in Vacaville would be to be able to have an innovation center. So believe it or not, they actually are scientists in our community that are doing R&D work, but they're leasing lab space from all over Northern California, because there isn't a place here in our part of Northern California that has an innovation center or a place for them to have wet lab exposure. So we're working with a company now that might be able to provide that service for us, and that will really, really round out our ecosystem here and really make us even more attractive for biotech companies. So limited availability. Again, I will thank the mayor and council for allowing us to move forward with the Northeast growth area. As you can see here on the screen, in the Vacaville Business Park, all that remains is 30 acres of undeveloped land. In Golden Hills, 33 acres of undeveloped land. And in our Interchange Business Park, only 29 acres. Over the next 5 years, this land will be gone. So it's important that we do look forward now and not wait to be behind the 8 ball when there is no land to develop. And now we start the process to look at creating our new technology park. The beauty of being able to do this now is by the time most of these properties are bought or leased or developed, we would be very far along on the process with developing the new technology park. So I can't emphasize enough that right now, the developers that are speaking with us, the size of these facilities, 15 to 30 acres, that's a perfect size for them. So I don't imagine that some of these properties are going to last too long in our community as we continue to ramp up our initiative. So the new technology park. So our employment lands, as I just stated, have a limited amount of land suitable for industrial development. Hey, Matt. And our northeast growth area is designated as our future employment lands, and very specifically to create that technology park. So why am I emphasizing technology park versus business park or industrial park? So a technology park would allow us to be able to bring in uses that are not industrial uses. So we could have R&D centers. This could be a location for any of the technology companies that are moving out of the Central Bay Area because of the cost of housing, because of the cost of land, because of the cost of construction. So we say technology park to really delineate it from an industrial park or a business park. This really is a great opportunity for us to really develop a cutting-edge technology park that accommodates all of those future industry uses that I just mentioned, just a few, but the industry uses that are really taking off right now besides biotechnology is robotics, ag tech, energy storage, and electric vehicles. And as a matter of fact, a few of our cities throughout the Bay were actually kind of creating right now an electric vehicle coalition. When we think of electric vehicles, it's not the same as our traditional fossil fuel vehicles. The platform for electric vehicles really is just the drivetrain, but everything else is pretty much outsourced. So many of our cities could be a part of that process. We don't actually have to be the cities to provide the powertrains, but there still has to be a body for the vehicles, seats, steering wheels, dashboards. All of those products still need to be manufactured. And so a few of our cities are in conversation now to create this new coalition so that we really, really capture what's happening in the electric vehicle industry. And that industry really is California's industry. There's electric vehicle manufacturing throughout the country, but the concentration really is here in California. I'm happy to take any questions now. That concludes my presentation. I hope it wasn't too lengthy, but I know I crammed a lot of information in there in a short amount of time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Director Burris. I would like to open the commission for questions. Before we do that, welcome, Mr. Gardner. We all have been in your shoes. Is there anything that you wanted to add with the presentation? And we're, it's up to you.
Traffic like that is a test of my normally affable and warm character. I would just say, we've talked about this quite a lot. I just want to give you a couple of statistics from the only thing I could quibble with Don about biotech industry is the only industry. I'm biased, of course, but I do think there are a couple of statistics that are relatively new that I'd like to share with you to sort of, I think, infuse the conversation with a forward-looking view, because we didn't expect the biomanufacturing center to fill at quite the speed that it did. And part of the reason that it did there, of course, is external to Vacaville, a large part of the reason. And it's really, I would point to the fundamentals of the science and the industry. And so I know we don't talk about that a lot, but the circumstances are that the science in the industry is stronger than it's ever been, driven by an open sort of finance window for the whole industry worldwide that lasted from 2015 to 2021, led to an investment on the order of tens of billions of dollars that we've never seen before in the industry on the whole, and resulting in a few things that I think are significant to mention because of the worldwide crunch in biomanufacturing. Vacaville has a reputation worldwide that precedes it in every room in the biomanufacturing conversation. Today, for me, for example, I had conversations about biomanufacturing with parties in Washington, D.C., North Carolina, Atlanta, Houston, Austin, and the Bay Area, all about Vacaville. Interestingly, we don't have to explain Vacaville to people in the biomanufacturing conversation. What is the sort of driving force here? It's the product pipeline in the industry. On just the therapeutic side, so even before we talk about what's in the bioeconomy and the advanced materials part of the conversation, there are more than 11,000 products in phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials combined. 11,000. in just one of the areas that's led to some of this explosive growth in cell and gene therapy, without getting us too far into the science, there are about 450 products in new trials. Why is this leading to a sort of a bolus of demand in biomanufacturing? Well, that's a completely new manufacturing modality. It didn't exist in the world prior to 10 years ago. You may have heard about the CRISPR technology that was born, maybe, if we're being generous, in a few places in the world, but more likely from Jennifer Doudna's lab at Berkeley. Nobel Prize-winning discovery. That entire field is new. And the method for making those drugs never existed before. It's smaller, it's more modular. It might democratize manufacturing, but for the moment, the skill to make these products worldwide largely resides in just a few areas, and this is one of them. And so while you have that lead, we filled 150 acres in the blink of an eye. And you have this opportunity, I think, to expand that scope to include the new area. I'll compete with Don for making sure that we get more manufacturers in there than auto companies, but we'll see how that goes. I think in the short term, there's no end in sight because of that industry pipeline. And I think it continues, not just here, but around the world. There's no manufacturing capacity for anyone, anywhere in the industry through 2023. Because of that, there's a continued wave of manufacturing announcements that we see. We took about 4 months off. If you didn't see it, California's own Kite Pharma commissioned a facility in Frederick, Maryland. That was in, I think, May or June. And there were a couple months off, a little break there. And then in August, we saw a flurry of about 5 more announcements. So this just continues. And I think if we open up more opportunity, we'll see more development.
Thank you for that, Matt. One thing I would just like to, as a follow-up, if you will, because you got here like at the perfect time in some ways in terms of the infill question. So we are running out of land, was what the last slide would indicate, but I know in some municipalities, Sacramento is partnering with around the world, as in the Green UC Davis, Sac State, which is extraordinary. That's not happened anywhere around California, really, at that scale. In Sacramento, and that's an infill project. So I'm just, and I don't know if you know the one I'm talking about, but the takeaway is there is infill that, because of the capacity problem issue. So I'm just curious, within our subject matter jurisdiction would be infill, and is there any thought to expanding capacity, or have you already thought about infill development? And then I'd love to open it up to the commission. I see Commissioner Wilkerson and any others.
Yeah, I'll take a step. Sure. So one of the areas that we've seen a dramatic change in is conversions into life science property. And I think one thing, if you had asked me at Bay Bio in 2005, would I have expected to see Tanforan Mall turned into lab? I would have said, not a chance. And here we are now looking at retail conversions to labs in the big biotech markets around the US. It's not just Tanforan. Horton Plaza in San Diego is being converted to lab. This is incredible. And so I think we're at an unpredictable phase, and it's the simultaneous occurrence of all-time high employment in the life sciences, all-time low vacancies, vacancy rates below 2%, and unemployment that's structurally negative. That at the end of the day, we're past the point where we've hired all the biology degrees and related degrees we could find. So I think I'd still put this in the area of good problems to have. It's led to a continued wave of conversions that we never would have expected to see. Every tilt up that's within sort of the labor pool has gone through the calculus of whether it should be flipped to some kind of lab or manufacturing use. And so we don't see an end to that either. I don't know how long that runway goes. Really, before you go through that math, you have to do the math on the labor pool. That's what the industry's going through is the labor pool there. It's not everywhere. Where there are process industries or allied food industries, I think we'll pick up some of the demand that we can't absorb in the big biotech clusters. But at least for now, we still see students being taken from here before they finish their degrees. So there's still a sign that we could create more local employment and keep those people home.
Thank you for that. I'll start with Commissioner Vargas and make my way down. Okay.
Just a congratulations, Mr. Burris. Good job, thank you.
Vice Chair Portney.
Yeah. Well, Matt, let's hope that the next time you have to come present, you've moved your CBC offices to the community college and you won't be stuck on 80 anymore. So, Mr. Don Burris, standing ovation to you and to Director Morris's staff and Mr. Burke's staff in Public Works to get us to this point. You came out the gate in a sprint, but now we're at the implementation and rubber meets the road. So the whole world in biomanufacturing is looking at Vacaville and watching what we do now. If I'm correct, Transwestern has an application in for a building. And can you briefly tell us the size of that building and then explain to us, give us a little explanation, because I think this entitlement program, the biotech fast track program, where you're going to do the entitlements in 100 days, is a game changer in the industry. So give us a little insight, and how long would that entitlement process take on anybody else that wasn't in this fast track?
Actually, if you don't mind, Commissioner, I would ask Payman Bevan to actually answer that question for you. We literally just had a follow-up meeting with Transwestern this morning to discuss their submission. So I'm pretty sure that Payman has more detailed information that I could offer you.
Because I'm sure everybody that has purchased dirt is going to be watching this process in this 100 days to see
Absolutely.
how we get to that point. So,
Chair Klein, I just want to be mindful that we, should steer away from talking about a specific project. If we want to talk generally about the fast track process, I think that's ideal, but the specifics of a project that will later come to the commission for a decision.
if I were to, would you give us that
Right.
fast track process and what a typical building, what the normal timeframes to be entitled from dirt to
Sure.
build out?
Good evening, everybody. So what we typically receive in terms of warehouse projects, I think you've all seen those. Most of those have been staff level, but they're typically a few 100,000 square feet of space. They're spec buildings. Depending on the type of environmental document that those require, those could be anywhere from a few months to 6 months. We've had some that have been longer, depending on, again, the specifics of the environmental review. The fast track program was created, and it's really going to be successful because we're relying largely on the general plan EIR, which all these users are going to be sort of in compliance with. So that makes things a lot easier for us. If you're familiar with the Midway Commerce Center, which was roughly 1 million square feet of space, that was approved roughly 100 days. And what we were able to achieve that because we were relying on the general plan EIR. So the environmental work was really a series of technical reports to confirm compliance with what we had anticipated in the EIR. So that really, CEQA is the bigger part of all of this. Certainly, city staff are on top of everything else, but it's the CEQA aspect of it that's a little bit out of our control in terms of the studies and really what the workload of these consultants is. Any project that's coming in as part of this fast track, again, is 90 to 100 days that we've committed to it. And again, depending on the CEQA part of it, we may come to the Planning Commission or they may be staff level approvals. Right now, the types of projects that we're getting for that, this would be the first one. So Transwestern is the first one. As Don mentioned, there are other ones that are going to be in the pipeline coming to us. But we're confident that 90 to 100 days can be achieved because we have a relationship with consultants that have done work in Vacaville, that have done work with our general plan and the EIR. So again, it's just a matter of doing some of these technical studies to make sure that it confirms what we'd already anticipated. That allows us to speed through the large part of this. And then we try to meet as often and quickly as we can with the applicant. As Don mentioned, we had a meeting today. But really, it's relying on the work that's already been done that allows us to have that 90 to 100 day turnaround.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say it's a very nice presentation. This is really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes next.
Thank you.
Fantastic job you guys all do representing Vacaville. We thank you so much for it. I was listening to the news this morning, and just a quick overview. CNBC was talking about Genentech. And I remember when Genentech was built, right? I'm that old. And people, though, the types of businesses that are coming in are different than, let's say, the Genentech. And so if you could give just a quick overview of not just one type of industry is coming, because what Genentech does is going to be way different than that. It's just a quick simpleman type of understanding of how these businesses all will be different, but how it all helps Vacaville.
Definitely. So Genentech's facility, one, it literally is the largest in the world, but we're not likely to see another facility like that in Vacaville or in the industry in general. The industry now, because the technology in itself is so very specialized, and a much surprise to myself, sometimes many of the products actually are off-the-shelf products, meaning there are other biotechnology companies making portions of proteins or products needed for the research that we might be doing. So a 1 million square foot facility it is probably not something we're going to see in the near future. But more than likely, we're going to see properties that are more than 150,000 up to about 300,000. As far as the other types of technology that's happening in the industry, I'll turn that over to Matt. But quickly, we do know that cell and gene therapy, Matt had mentioned to you all just a moment ago about the CRISPR technology. Cell and gene therapy is kind of like leading the charts right now as far as what that new biotechnology technology looks like. So,
Yeah, I would just, I would say it's not just happening here, it's happening all over. And as Don says, what we're looking at is really smaller formats in production. If you're following, specific news like what's happening in cancer treatment, the real background to this is about more personalized treatment. And so if you look at the trend in cancer towards immunotherapy, what that really means is taking your immune response, taking it out of you, boosting it, and putting it back in. Well, that's a very small manufacturing need because it's really just based on your internal combustion machinery.
Right.
And so, or consumption machinery. So I think to give you some parallels, the same exact thing that Don just described, the sort of 300,000 square foot manufacturing footprints, is happening right at this moment in downtown Philadelphia. It's happening right at this moment at Bayer in Berkeley. If you drove by that Bayer facility 20 years ago, there was a behemoth there. And with 1,400 employees, they made a hemophilia product in a very large scale environment. They scraped all that, they bulldozed it and started over. They've now started the process toward, well, I think this has been in the newspaper, so I'm not saying anything that's out of turn here, a cell and gene therapy campus with 6 modular production trains, small scale, instead of one large, very large scale biologics environment. And so this, I would say overall, isn't just happening in Vacaville, it's happening everywhere. There just aren't enough tanks, stainless steel tanks, to make this many applications of so many different kinds of drugs. And so I think the smaller format, the more sort of agile production is happening all over the biotech industry. Whether you're talking about drug A or drug B or drug C, or even the bioeconomy, which we're all pretty excited about, the advanced materials part of the industry and alternate and future foods. Those formats are different. And so we'll see changes in the way that those things are fermented and grown. All pretty exciting territory and all novel forms of production. I would just say too, one of the things that we started the conversation on early several years ago was the need to support companies testing new production technology itself.
Right.
So the actual train, the fermentation train and refining steps and processes. And that still needs to happen. So last week, during a White House town hall, the Department of Defense announced $1.2 billion in new projects to support scale up. That's going to continue as well. And so what we're seeing is much more specific developmental technologies, specific to those kinds of production methods.
Right.
I don't want to have us go to school today on microbial fermentation. There are about 6 different levels of fermentation that we're talking about here. This is great stuff.
So with that, we're not going to have the size of Genentech's, right? We're going smaller. So you're now out in all these other different areas talking to multiple different companies.
yes.
Right? So Don, my question is, when you bring them to Vacaville, what do they say is missing, and what do they say some of the challenges are?
Oh, excellent. Number one, talent. And that actually is one of the reasons why they're more interested in Vacaville. There is a talent shortage worldwide. As Matt mentioned just a moment ago, it's very difficult to actually find enough talent for the companies. And then our students at Solano Community College, and I just have to say this again, I know I say this every time I have an opportunity, but that is a jewel. That is a jewel in our city. It's a crown jewel. Yes, the program is so successful, students are taken before they can actually graduate.
Right.
The community college has been already told by industry that they need to produce more graduates.
Right.
That's how big the need is. So talent is one of the reasons why people see value in Vacaville. When all you need to do is go to your own backyard to hire the talent.
Right.
And the reason for that is, and I guess I'll just take a quick moment to explain that a little bit. So research and development, totally different type of graduates. But in biomanufacturing, totally different type of workers. So we have more technicians in biomanufacturing because we're not doing drug discovery. So these are different types of grads, no PhDs, no masters required. But if we're talking drug discovery, totally different look for the company. Matt did mention earlier that when Commissioner Klein asked about infill projects, so that's happening all over the Central Bay Area right now. What was once the big office boom, for example, in Redwood City, 1.5 million square foot of office had been approved to be built. Literally 90% of that office space is now going to be wet lab space for drug discovery companies. So urban infill in that situation is really turning around all of that product so that it can support the industry. Where, again, our niche is manufacturing. You'd be very hard pressed to find more companies, although Bear has a lot of money, that would scrape a facility and then have to build a brand new facility. That's very, very costly. And that cost is a cost that you wouldn't have to bear here in Vacaville.
Right. So talent and what else? What would you say, Don?
Next, I would honestly have to say our cost. So our land cost, our cost of living, and everyone is always amazed at our housing cost. So talent and cost.
Okay. And how can we help?
I think you guys did a great job helping us by approving the biotechnology fast track program. And I know that we're probably going to be coming back in the future to talk more about what can we do as far as fee deferrals and maybe fee reduction as well. It's going to be very costly for some of these companies to really set up shop here in Vacaville. But I think I'll continue to work with our staff and Ms. Morris and hopefully be able to come back with more recommendations where you all can support.
Okay. And then looking at the land aspect, you said we're running out of land. What other options could we do to increase the land?
So the whole concept with the Northeast Growth Area and creating that new technology park, that's really where our future lies, is in that future employment land.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And if you have no more questions for me directly, I think we can move on and Matt can do his update on the California Biomanufacturing Center, if that's okay. Okay.
Do you want me to drop the slides?
And I'll drive if you want.
Okay, thanks. Well, Commissioners, it's a pleasure to be back with you today, and I appreciate this opportunity to give you an update on what CBC's been up to. As you've heard throughout the course of the last 15 months, we've had some surprising developments in a I think, a very exciting way. I'm here to tell you a little bit about what's happening in the industry. I talked about a couple of those sort of big picture market drivers, I would say, and I'll touch on a few more of those. Talk a little bit more about what's happening in the overall constrained bandwidth in the industry around the world. Talk to you a little bit about what's happening in workforce trends and look ahead at how CBC is addressing some of these things. Go ahead, Tom. I talked about this a minute ago, but I do think it's significant just to point out how much investment has come into the industry. As you'd all appreciate, during COVID, there were a lot of industries that suffered tremendously, and biotech, I think, got the spotlight during that stretch because during a crisis like that, the world often turns to science to look for solutions. And so the industry never stopped going to work. In fact, even in the Bay Area, generally speaking, was sort of the kind of place where the lab couldn't shut down. In fact, it doubled down and went to work. We saw a lot of employers that were making lab supplies that converted into PPE for a short-term sprint on just response. So in essence, that really sort of turned the switch on in a number of new ways for the industry and in being responsive and thinking about solutions. So during that stretch, I think in 2020 and 2021, we set new highs in venture capital, and the IPO window remained open. So both in private investment in the industry and then public market investment in the industry continued to surge ahead. It slowed down earlier this year, which maybe it needed to as a little bit of a pressure release valve, but that open capital infusion into the industry stayed open for a very long time. The food part of the industry, sorry, Don. The food part of the industry, as you've seen in the region here, has absolutely exploded into never before seen levels. $13 billion in venture capital in 2021. We're very fortunate in the Bay Area to have a great many of the industry's leaders just down the road. And as has always been the case, when they start to think about how they're going to scale up, they tend to turn their eyes in this direction. And so we've had those same conversations that we had with the prior 3 or 4 generations of companies thinking about where they do larger scale production. Go ahead, Don. Worldwide, we've seen a number of areas of need arise over the last 2 years in particular. CMO stands for Contract Manufacturing Organization, the sort of part of the industry that is outsourced production. That exists in both the therapeutic part of the industry as well as the sort of advanced materials and protein part of the industry. And they're all full. They're completely booked out. Capacity isn't available for about 18 months looking ahead. So if you were thinking as an earlier stage or a venture-backed company where you were going to get batches of production, good luck. That is one of the problems that the whole industry faces at the moment. So we've seen the emergence of new business models as a result of this. In desperation, the industry has responded with some very interesting new looks. So for example, on the smaller end of the scale, we've seen Volkswagen bus-sized cartridge-like manufacturing environments. So you could take a warehouse that used to make fruits, canned fruits, any sort of distribution facility, insert some of these cartridges, and they're basically mobile clean rooms, and you can string them together in parallel. Pretty interesting small scale environment. The other one that we've seen that we really didn't have before is sort of the venture-backed contract manufacturer. And the primary reason that didn't exist before is venture capitalists don't like paying for hardware. So the sort of stainless steel that goes into that kind of production environment, that's where they stopped. They would invest in the science, and when it came time to production, it was up to the company to pay for its commercial operations and scale up. That has changed. In just the last 2 years, we've seen a whole generation of venture-backed contract manufacturers, and they've popped up all over the world. I would still say quite a few of the leaders are right here in California, but it isn't just happening here. That trend is happening all over the place. We talked about cell and gene therapy. Just in the roughly 2 years that we've tracked specific investment projects, and since CBC opened with the Agenus news in July of 2021, we've tracked north of $8 billion in new manufacturing investments, and it hasn't slowed down. In fact, it's speeding up. As I mentioned, there were about 5 announcements just in August, and so we took a little break, came back pretty hot. So interesting environment that we're in. Industry employment is at all-time highs in totals across the country. Unemployment is under 2%, and so for the industry, so that creates some interesting challenges. That's why we hear from UC Davis, UC Berkeley, Solano College, and other programs that they do get those calls from employers before students are even done. Those programs are getting rated, and one of the things that we see is that that's a tremendous potential to keep those kids home before they have to leave. Those are great jobs. They pay well. People that get into that career track can afford to buy a home and put down roots in a community. And those are the kinds of jobs we'd love to see grow. And so if we can create more jobs locally that prevent some of those promising students from leaving, it would be a great answer. That's okay. That's okay. I think we've covered that stuff. So let's just go ahead. The latest for the California Biomanufacturing Center is that we've had this conversation about what's happening with our peers all over the country. And that led us into a conversation about where that scale-up work was taking place. There is a very small-scale pilot facility at Lawrence Berkeley Lab in Berkeley, and we ended up in a kind of a partnership with them about supporting companies that were scaling up. We wanted to create a solution to catch those companies leaving, not to get too technical, but the 300-liter environment to go up. And we'd love them to come here in that conversation. So we ended up teaming that conversation with a team from UC Davis that wants to build something like a 20,000-liter facility. And so that's in progress. What we found when we started into that discussion is that exact same conversation happening all over the United States, at Iowa State, at Michigan State, at the University of Illinois, all over the Southeast, where biomass is heavier, where the feedstocks that go into these processes are available. And so we've ended up creating the start of a national network of those pilot facilities to support the industry's growth. Very exciting territory. One of the things that we've asked of all those institutions is that they share the commitment to workforce development. In other words, when you plan a pilot facility, you're not just serving the company that needs 5,000 grams of product. You're also training for the students who will go to work in those environments later. What does that really mean? It means that when you're building a pilot facility, you kind of double the floor space, just to oversimplify this. You need student teams to be able to surround those tanks and see how the process works and be there live in the environment. You might throw away more batches than you normally would want to, but that's because students are learning in a live environment and getting their hands on the equipment. This is the project that we ended up in detail with on the University of California building this facility. They've got a system-wide now approach at the UC office. I think the department is called Agriculture and Natural Resources. It is a system-wide office. It has about 13 centers and institutes across UC, but really the program's headquartered out of Davis because of the ag excellence there. So we've formed a partnership with them. We hope to take that commitment with some of those national partners from the Carolinas to the Midwest, and to use the sort of the presence that Vacaville has in the manufacturing conversation to convene people here and just really showcase Vacaville's leadership in front of the whole industry for working on solutions for the next generation of industry. As I said at the beginning, I think one of the themes that we see continuously here is that we don't have to introduce Vacaville in this context. The industry knows where we're talking about. When we say we're building this program in the shadow of Genentech, it's recognized. And so there's no further explanation required. So I think that's the core of the update. I think I would just echo what Don has said about the thinking about the future and the opportunity to identify more opportunities to harness this growth. There's no end in sight.
Bravo. Thank you for that presentation. I'd like to once more open it up to the commissioner. I'll do a scan. Commissioner Wilkerson, you're good? Okay. Terrific news about the University of California. The Agriculture and Natural Resources, UCA&R, is a really smart pivot point for Vacaville to try to leverage this location. So really smart. Very happy to hear that, because Thanks. One of the concerns I have, and I've been clear about this since I was appointed, my first interview with the mayor, I said, they were asking, well, what's the one thing that you'd love to see? And I'd love to see the University of California in Vacaville, or CSU Satellite, someone partnering with our campuses here to really elevate our programs. And that can be done. It's happening all around the state. So I think A&R is a really smart spot. So
they've been a great partner.
Yeah, great. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Maybe we can get some driverless car technology too.
Thanks.
Great to see you both. Okay, so we'll now move to item 8. This is a public hearing on item 8A is a public hearing on North Village Area Plan 2. And so this is going to require some coordination here. I'm going to read a statement that our diligent attorneys have prepared. because there's a perceived conflict of interest. So I will be stepping down from this part of the meeting. And once that's over, I'll return. But with that, so the statement here, so tonight, to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest, I'm recusing myself from creating an agenda item 8A regarding the North Village Area Plan 2, because my residence is located in the area close to the project. I will leave the meeting until notified, until notified by Commissioner Lightfoot or staff that the item is complete. Thank you.
And you're stuck with me. So, good evening. Tonight's public hearing is the North Village Area Plan 2 project. We will conduct this meeting as follows. Senior Planner Albert Denault will provide the staff presentation. I will then open up for public hearing and ask the applicant to make a brief presentation. Following the applicant's presentation, I will see if any commissioners have questions about the project or if they wish to wait until the commission receives all the public comments. Each member of the public will have an opportunity to speak and will be given up to 3 minutes. After everyone has been heard, I will ask the applicant to respond to the public's questions or comments. Once any questions have been answered, the commission will deliberate and make a decision about our recommendation on this project. Before Senior Planner Albert Denault begins his presentation, do any of the commissioners have ex parte communications that they wish to disclose? Seeing none. I would like to make for the record that I did have a brief conversation with the applicant, and nothing was discussed there that would change my opinion of the project. So, Senior Planner Albert, please proceed.
Vice Chair Courtney,
Yes.
I'm going to kick this one off, actually.
You're taking it on? Okay.
Yeah, just briefly. I just wanted to introduce Senior Planner Denault. There's been a little bit of confusion at some recent meetings. I want to clarify that Albert is a 12-year veteran of the Vacaville Community Development Department, beginning his career here. And he will be doing the staff presentation, which is basically our analysis of this project and our recommendation before we go over to the applicant's presentation. That's all I wanted to add. Albert, please take it away.
Thank you very much for those introductions. The item before the commission tonight is the North Village Area Plan 2 project. And so this is a request. It's a comprehensive amendment to the North Village specific plan. Includes various entitlements for consideration, starting off with an environmental assessment. Also includes general plan and zoning map amendments, a development agreement amendment, a specific plan amendment, and lastly, a vesting tentative map for this project. This is North Village. You'll see on the screen in front of you outlined in black. It's bound by Interstate 505 to the west, Leisuretown Road to the east, Vacaville Parkway to the south, and then Midway Road to the north. So what is the North Village Specific Plan? Well, it is a master plan development community. It was originally approved in 1995, and it's comprised of approximately 880 acres. There's 2 planning areas within the North Village Specific Plan. The total unit count that was originally approved for this project is 2,499 units. That's comprised of single-family and multifamily development. There's also commercial and business park components of this project, as well as public college, public elementary school site identified in the specific plan, as well as a private swim club, a couple of public parks, and a vast majority of public open space. And this is what that specific plan looks like. As shown out on the aerial imagery, you'll see that the business park components are identified in blue on the screen, with a small component of commercial at the corner of North Village Parkway and Vacaville Parkway. Purple area is at Solano Community College campus, and you'll see a small portion that was originally identified near Leisuretown Road for the Vacaville Unified School District school site. That we'll talk more about that public school site later on in the presentation. The other variety of tan, orange, and gold colors represent residential developments, and you'll see the green area bisecting the development is open space that is primarily identified for right away for overhead power lines from PG&E, but also because of Gibson Canyon Creek open space. So as we mentioned before, the specific plan is identified or bisected into two different planning areas. Area Plan 1, which is pretty much built out, is comprised of approximately 370 acres. There's 1,348 units that include single-family and multifamily development within that area. There is a commercial site that is partially developed, and then also business park development that is partially developed. There's a connection of open space within that Area Plan 1, and there is one public park, Corderos Park. And then there was also a school site that is going to be moving over to Area Plan 2 as part of this proposal. Talk a little bit more when we get into what the details are for the proposal. Area Plan 2 comprised of approximately 470 acres with 1,151 units, again, single family and multifamily development. With large open space areas, a public park was identified as well as a private swim club. And this is how those two area plans are identified. You'll see Area Plan 1 is pretty much built out with the current phase under construction is Unit 7 at the end of North Village Parkway. And the area in pink on the screen is the next area of development, which is proposed for this project. So a little bit of the history of this project about the specific plan. Originally approved in 1995, includes a variety of land use entitlements, including a specific plan and an environmental impact report that was certified. But between 1995 and 2000, there was an annexation for the project itself. And there were also a variety of environmental permits that the applicant had to, or the developer had to procure prior to actually starting construction of the project. And between that 5-year period is when the developer was doing those two things. In 2001 is really when Area Plan 1 started construction. And that progressed until a point when the Vacaville Unified School District decided to move forward with their school site in Area Plan 1. And so as part of that procedure, they needed to go before the Airport Land Use Commission to determine that the school site was consistent with the airport compatibility plan for Nut Tree. Well, as part of that hearing, the Airport Land Use Commission disapproved or determined that it wasn't consistent, which means that that school site would not work for Vacaville Unified School District. Moving along the process, the developer continued development within Area Plan 1, moving with Unit 6 and Unit 7. Most recently, Unit 7 procured their entitlements in 2016, and that's an area that's almost done with the development. So once that got to a point where development was finishing to build out for Area Plan 1, developer decided to move forward with submitting an application for its Area Plan 2 to amend those land uses to bring it up to date. And so that was submitted in 2019. Well, between 2019 and 2022, staff and the developer worked together with other agencies to review the proposal that they had, primarily making sure that we identified any design issues for this proposal and also identifying consistency with various regulatory documents such as the general plan, zoning, and other landscaping and site design requirements. Well, the culmination of all those efforts resulted in a revision to that original proposal from 2019. So as part of our due diligence, we presented that revised plan back to City Council in May of this year, and City Council determined that the change was still consistent with that original proposal that they saw in 2019. So we continued moving through the process and scheduled a series of public hearings, starting with the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, and then also a meeting with the Solano Airport Land Use Commission. And those were both held in June. And then ultimately results in the culmination of this meeting before the Planning Commission tonight. So here is the project proposal, and staff felt it might be best to summarize it to 6 points for the commission. And it starts with the applicant's proposal to change general plan and zoning map designations for both of those maps that are currently on the city's website. And those are the guiding maps that help identify how development is supposed to occur within the city. And so the developer is requesting to revise those land use designations and the layout of how those land uses are going to be in Area Plan 2, while also updating some areas within Area Plan 1. The second notable change is that the applicant is proposing to reserve a 12.5 acre school site within Area Plan 2. We mentioned that school site within Area Plan 1 was originally determined that it would not be consistent with the airport. And so the developer is requesting to revise their area plan 2 to be able to accommodate that school site within their land use plan. Third notable change is that they're requesting to extend the development agreement by 20 years. It's currently set to expire in 2025. So they're requesting 20 years until 2045 to continue the build out of their area plan 2. They're also looking to increase the overall unit by 100 units from 2499, which was approved in the original project, to 2599. They're also looking to update various exhibits within the North Village specific plan and standards to be consistent with general plan policies, the land use diagrams that they're proposing for the area plan 2, as well as various new adopted standards that are currently in effect within our municipal code. And then lastly, the applicant's looking to obtain a vesting tentative map that identifies how all those land uses and that large property within area plan 2 will be subdivided to create smaller lots. So that's the project proposal in summary, and we'll go through one by one on each of these just to provide some context. Obviously, our staff report goes into greater detail for each of these items. The first are those general plan and zoning map changes. For illustration, we've got on the screen exhibits that were provided by the applicant that shows those changes. We'll take the area plan for area plan 1 first as the changes that they're proposing. You'll see there is a gray area that is that business park designation. What the applicant is looking at doing is revising that to show open space area. Now, this open space area was the result of negotiations with the Army Corps of Engineers as part of that 1995 to 2000 period where they're looking at acquiring their entitlements, their environmental permits for those. And so the resulting of that was that they had to preserve or conserve wetland area. And so they're looking to update their documents to show what area is pretty much off limits within that business park portion. You'll see also towards the top of the map that there's a residential low medium designation. They're looking to update that to reflect it more consistent with the actual lots that they developed out there. The residential low medium are the smaller lots, while the residential low density are the larger lots. That's just something that's reflective of what's actually being built in Unit 7. That's it for Area Plan 1. Area Plan 2 are the more notable changes that are being proposed tonight. You'll see the left side of the screen shows the existing general plan, which the zoning map is somewhat consistent with. This layout shows residential low density as the primary designation for this area, with small portions for medium density as well as high density. There is a public park proposed originally along North Village Parkway and a small blue site that was originally that swim club. You'll notice towards the bottom of the map that there is a residential low density portion that was originally approved as part of the project. But on the right side of the screen, you'll see that that area has disappeared. And that's that's one of the first notable changes in this map, is that that area, again, was a portion that was required to be removed as part of their negotiations with the Army Corps of Engineers due to trying to conserve wetland area within their development project. So they lost that area. But more of the notable changes that you'll see on the map closer to the northern of the portion is you'll see that the residential low density portion is been reduced. The applicant is looking at changing the mixture of land uses to incorporate more residential low medium density and residential medium density. You also see that the high density has been moved across the street closer to the park. The park has been moved away from North Village Parkway, and then you'll see that school site that's identified right next to the park and close to the residential high density. So those are some of the examples of changes that are being proposed by the applicant for the land use exhibit. The school site is another notable change that the applicant is proposing. You'll see on the left side of your screen that original land use plan that identified where that school site was proposed to be. You'll also see very faintly some dash lines that represent the overflight path of an emergency way for the Nut Tree Airport. And back in 2012, the Airport Land Use Commission determined that, you know what, even though that particular emergency path had been eliminated, it still wasn't a good idea to have a school site at that location. So the applicant is proposing to amend their plan to show that original location in Area 7 up north. You'll see that in a little turquoise color in the middle map. And then also on the right map, that shows that specific location where they're trying to reserve that 12.5 acre site within the area plan 2. 3 and 4 we lump together as a description because those are two particular changes that are directly related to the development agreement. Currently, the development agreement that was originally approved for this project expires, sets the term to expire in 2025 with a unit count of 2,499 units. Some of the more notable provisions within the plan is that the dedication of parkland be provided to the city. And then there are some special provisions that the development itself is protected from any new rules or policies or ordinances that are enacted while the project is pursuing their development entitlements. They're also exempt from the city's plan growth ordinance. And there's also a provision in there that they be given credit for donating land for the school and for parkland dedication. Or as part of their proposal to amend this development agreement, they're looking to extend that term by 20 years to allow them additional time to build this area plan 2 out. They're also looking to increase the total unit count by 100 units. But something that's unique to this particular amendment is that in addition to dedicating the parkland, they're also proposing to construct the parkland. This proposal would be termed as a turnkey park for this project, in which the developer is responsible for not only dedicating the land, but also constructing all the improvements for that park. The same provisions still apply with the protection of the new rules. They are proposing to update their specific plan to be consistent with a lot of the newer standards and policy for residential development that are currently in effect with our municipal code. Again, being exempt with the plan growth ordinance and then also obtaining credits for school and park land dedication. Number 5, I'll just summarize a few of the examples of what the applicant is looking to do as part of that North Village Specific Plan document. They're looking to revise their graphics to identify that school site in the Area Plan 2. They're looking to remove the swim club from the Area Plan 2 configuration to fit in those the additional units as well as the school site. They're looking to add something that's a little unique to the park development, which is they're looking to add a 2-acre dog park to this Area Plan 2. Another notable change is that the original specific plan identified the development of a supermarket, and the applicant is looking to change the term supermarket to grocery store to allow a greater variety of food options that could be marketed. Supermarket is a term that identifies a very large type of store when those types of stores aren't generally built anymore and they're a little bit more reduced in size. So grocery store allows them to be able to market to that. There are some land uses that the applicant is looking to add to the business park designation, including fitness centers, salons, dry cleaners, and restaurants. The fitness center is the applicant's solution for removing the swim club, is that having that use allowed within the business park designation allows the development of a private business to be able to go in and set up some type of fitness center where people could go to. There are some other businesses or other land uses that the applicant is proposing, such as RV, boat, and mini storage, but staff has a condition of approval that recommends the removal of those land uses because those land uses tend to not employ a lot of employees. They end up taking up a lot of land that could be used for other personal service businesses that would serve residents. There is one additional use that the applicant's proposing is a charter school type of land use. They're identifying within the business park designation, but of course we've had our issues with the Vacaville Unified School District site not being allowed. So we took another look at this one and found out that the other business park area that's identified along North Village Parkway wouldn't allow any type of school at all. So we made a note of this, that the business park area really be limited to the portion that's along Vacaville Parkway and Crescent Drive, because that area would allow schools because it's outside of the more notable airport land use zones. Some of the other smaller amendments include defining some focal elements within Area Plan 2, such as spots with park benches, passive areas where people would be able to walk along trails, identifying what that walkability and the connectivity would look like along Gibson Canyon Creek open space. And then also, as I noted before, updating the development standards to be more consistent with the city's municipal code. And then lastly, the applicant's requesting a vesting tentative map approval to subdivide that large plot of land to create single-family lots, to create parkland, detention basins. And so what this looks like is the developer is looking at subdividing to create 836 single-family lots, 171 duets, which is something that's unique to this development. Originally, the project did not include any type of duet development. And so that's that missing middle housing component that was missing from this specific plan that the developer is now proposing to add to the project. And then the apartment project consisting of 244 units. The tentative map reserves land for a public park. There would be 6 acres for a neighborhood park, as well as 2 acres for a dog park. And then that 12.5 acre site for that school site. As I mentioned before, detention basins are one located to the northern portion of the site in green. That's at the corner of Midway Road and Leisuretown Road, as well as toward the southeast corner of the site, another detention basin. And then this vesting tentative map identifies exactly how landscape setbacks are going to work, how circulation is going to work, connectivity, all things that as part of our review process have evaluated to confirm compliance with development standards to ensure that we are getting a product that meets those design standards and those design goals. So this project has gone along the process that's necessary to obtain certain recommendations before it gets to the final decision maker, City Council. So we've had some other commission recommendations that have gone forth, and it's imperative to inform the commission about where we have been and then also where we are going. So in this particular project, we did have a hearing before the Parks and Recreation Commission that occurred on June 1st. And through discussion about the project, there was an ultimate recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Commission. And their recommendation was that the City Council not approve the preliminary design of the park, the specific design of the park. Unfortunately, as part of their recommendation, they didn't specify exactly what the issues were with the park design. But that recommendation is going to be forwarded along with Planning Commission's recommendation tonight, whatever it may be, to the ultimate decision maker, City Council. As part of the development review process, this project also needed to procure the recommendation from Solano County Airport Land Use Commission, and that was done on June 9th during a public hearing. And as part of that hearing, the Solano Airport Land Use Commission determined that all these revisions, the land uses that they were adding up, the layout of lots, the location of the school site, everything was consistent with those 2 compatibility plans that are notable for Vacaville, the Nut Tree Airport, and then the Travis Air Force Base compatibility plans. We did need to conduct an environmental assessment because there is a notable change for this project, and that notable change is that we had an environmental impact report that was originally certified in 1995, and that identified 2,499 units, but the applicant is proposing to increase it by 100 units. So the main thing that CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, requires municipalities to do is identify what that change is going to look like in that 100 units. Does it represent a significant impact? Would the additional units create more impact than originally analyzed by the project? Well, in the previous slides of my presentation, I noted that there were components of this project that needed to be reserved for wetland delineation, for wetland preservation, in Area Plan 1 and Area Plan 2, and that resulted in the reduction of acreage for business park use, as well as the removal of residential units. That change of the business park area ended up resulting in a no net change, that the increase in the additional units would not result in a significant impact because the project was losing business park land as a result of preserving open space area for conservation of wetlands. And so an assessment was drafted up to identify what that analysis looked like, the comparative analysis, and that was also provided in the staff report as a link where you can access it online. It was a pretty hefty document, but that is the assessment, is that there is no significant change, no substantial impact created as a result of adding those additional 100 units, and that original environmental impact report that was certified in 1995 is still pertinent for this project. As part of our analysis, we identify the public benefits. What's the point of these changes? Is there any benefit to the city? Is there any benefit to the community for this project? And in reviewing the project and comparing it to those general plan policies and zoning standards, we found that there were some benefits to these changes, that original land use plans that were identified in 1995 were outdated, and we have newer policies because we're figuring out things should be done differently. And one of those things is that the benefit for this particular amendment is that the developer is looking to fix that issue with the school site that was originally identified in 2012 by providing a school site with an area plan 2. Another notable benefit is that this original project identified primarily residential low density, which is single family detached homes. And with this project, the applicant is looking at adding a missing middle housing component, which is the 171 duets for this project. there is a small portion of right-of-way along Midway Road that the developer is looking to give to the city as part of their alignment on Midway Road. The original layout for how much right-of-way was necessary along Midway Road was originally solidified in the specific plan. And as part of their analysis and the way that Midway Road would be lined up and how much right-of-way was necessary to make Midway Road safe, the developer was able to dedicate some more of their project to be able to make Midway Road consistent with city standards. The land use layout is also resulting in a better way of how you're laying out different uses throughout the Area Plan 2 development. Specifically, the park has been moved away from a major arterial that has high speeds to a portion that's a lot safer, that doesn't have a lot of high-speed circulation. The school was also moved next to the park, so you're having joint use compatibility between the school activity and then the park activity. The apartments originally identified across the street are now being moved next to the park and next to the school, which allows people who are raising little kids within their apartments to be able to walk straight to the school, walk straight to the park, and utilize those things when they normally only provided a small balcony. They're able to get really close access to the park. The applicant, another benefit for this is that the applicant's looking to add more land uses for this business park designation, which will help market that area for development. And then I would say probably most notably this particular project, the change has a provision where the developer is now looking to build a park, which includes a new dog park. And that's something new for the city, and that's something new for this project. And that's another provision that we identified as a public benefit for the city. So with that, we've concluded our analysis on this project, and we have found as part of our review that the proposed changes that the applicant is looking to do as conditioned would meet the required findings for the various entitlements that were noted in the very beginning of the presentation, would comply with various general plan policies, which are also identified within the findings for approval. We found that it was consistent to the Airport Land Use Commission, that it's compatible with those airport compatibility plans, that it would provide a school site for VUSD, which was required originally in the specific plan, and that the project provides this turnkey neighborhood park and the dog park, that the developer is looking to build that park. And then there's also a variety of housing that the applicant is changing the land use layouts to provide a variety of more housing instead of the typical residential low density detached homes. So with that, staff has a recommendation for the commission for consideration, and it's by simple motion that they would recommend to City Council to reaffirm that North Village Project Environmental Impact Report and approve the general plan amendment, adopting the zoning map amendment and development agreement amendments, and approving the North Village Specific Plan Amendment and vesting tentative map. That concludes my presentation. As Chair mentioned, the applicant is here with a presentation also for the commission. We also have a variety of different staff members available and other agency representative from Vacaville Unified School District and Solana Irrigation District that are available to help answer any clarifying questions from the commission or the public.
Thank you, Albert. Now I'd like to open up the public hearing and ask the applicant to come up and present, please.
Project before you tonight, and thank you, staff. My name's Doug Chen. I work for North Village Development. I'm here to do a very quick presentation on the project, and as Albert has already gone over a lot of details. Just to recap, North Village is a master plan development approved originally in 1995. At that time, the original developer was Mission Land Development, and the current developer, North Village Development, purchased the development from Mission Land back in 2001. And then since then, we have been building the project. Again, it's originally approved for 2,499 residential units. And the development agreement does have a provision to add 100 additional units for a total of 2,599. That's in exchange for us building an interim college improvement facility for the Solana Community College. And that's already built. And in fact, it's right across the street from the Solano College Annex, which is at the intersection of Vacaville Parkway and North Village Parkway. Area Plan 1 is pretty much built out, with the exception of the business park. There's about 54 acres left in the business park, and a roughly about a 7-acre commercial parcel. So the 7-acre commercial parcel is where we anticipate a grocery store will anchor that commercial parcel, and we're looking for tenants for the business park. The primary reason why we're submitting an application to amend North Village AP2 is because it's driven by the school parcel for VUSD, Vacaville Unified School District, in AP1. VUSD did not acquire the parcel because the Airport Land Use Commission decided it was not consistent with the airport land use plan. So by reserving our proposal to reserve 12.5 acres for VUSD, at the same time, we're looking at revising the land use pattern within AP2 to provide us with a broader range of dwelling units. Before, it was mostly residential low density, meaning larger homes, single family detached. We wanted a more balanced mix. So you'll see in the table later on, now we're roughly about 23% residential low density. Remaining dwelling units will be what the city would classify as either middle housing or attached housing, to give us a broader range of housing. Again, this kind of ties into with the presentation you heard before in item 7A with biotech. We really feel like it's just a good idea to provide a much broader range of affordability for entry-level workers, move up housing, and more higher-end housing. We can skip the timeline. You already went over it. Some of the key provisions of our application. So we want to amend the general plan land use map to accommodate a school site in Area Plan 2. And again, shift away from mostly residential low density to provide more middle housing. And then one of the key provisions in the development agreement is for the developer to construct a turnkey park. Previously, in AP1, we dedicated the land and the city constructed the park. And in this scenario, after discussing a lot of discussions with the city staff, they really want us to just build the park outright. And some of the key issues with the park, benefits to the city, is that we will get partial credit for the park. And what we have agreed to provide is fund the gap between the credit, the park impact fee credit, and the actual cost of the park. The city did a physical impact analysis. The build out of North Village will provide a positive physical impact to the city, about $2.5 million annually. In addition to that, so that's the annual physical impact, but just with a non-recurring cost, things like higher impact fees that we'll be paying and the park subsidies that we'll be providing, that's going to be about $10 million. And this project will also reduce the environmental impact compared to the original North Village. You can see that there's an overall reduction in vehicle trip count, vehicle miles traveled, water demand, and sewer generation. That's just we went over the map already, so we can skip that. Again, that's just a comparison of the, on your left-hand side, the existing general plan for Area Plan 2 and what we're proposing, and Albert has already gone over that in more detail. This is a chart that shows you on your left-hand side, the existing general plan. You can see that if we were to build per the existing general plan, 70% would be residential low density, meaning the bigger homes, bigger lots, more expensive. And we're shifting away from that. The proposed general plan, we're at 23% residential low density. And the remaining will be the smaller homes and the mid-sized homes, and also apartments. Can you rotate that? That's just a quick overview of the park. On the north, you have the dog park, which is a 2-acre park. On the north end, let me turn that around. So you can see a dog park that's roughly about 2 acres. You have a small dog portion and then a large dog portion. And then the 6-acre neighborhood park with a multi-purpose sports field, big kids play area, small kids play area, tennis courts in the lower right-hand corner, and then in the lower left-hand corner, there's an area set aside for after-school care. Keeping in mind that the school site is located adjacent to the park to the south. The last slide. That concludes my brief presentation. I'm ready to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chin. If you'll stay up here, I'll come back between you and staff who may have questions.
Okay.
I'd like to open it up now for commissioners. Do they have any questions for staff or the applicant? Commissioner Rudine, the floor is yours.
Hi there. It's probably, well, I don't know, I guess it's directed to either. So with the open space around the business park, I think that's going to look really, really nice. It won't just look so sterile like a business park. With the open space, will there be walking trails? A little too early to ask that.
That question. Meaning the open space of reserved to preserve wetlands. For the most part, you will not be able to go through the open space. However, we can put a trail around the open space.
Okay, yeah, well, the reason I ask is I know, coming from Silicon Valley, that, you know, you work long hours, and especially probably generally in that area, that, you know, sometimes just getting out walking would be nice. I just thought it might be a nice addition. And then I also, speaking of nice addition, I wanted to comment that I really appreciate the mix of housing and the diversity of the type of housing, especially where it's located next to, as you had mentioned, next to where the biomanufacturing is, and you'll have entry level homes, and it's not just single family. So I wanted to comment, and I appreciate that. That's all I have for right now.
Commissioner Wilkerson.
Question regarding the extension to 2045. What's the think behind that? Is that how long you think it'll take to complete the AP2?
It's based on what we
Right.
And we're just about built out in AP1. So that's, we're thinking that's about the approximate timeline, because it's going to take us a year or two to get the infrastructure built to serve AP2. We need to extend North Village Parkway there's a bridge we need to build.
Right.
We need to extend North Village Parkway. There's a lot of front end work we need to do.
After the infrastructure's in place, what area has been designated to go first? You're going to go apartment, you're going to go school, you're going to go park, mixed density, residential?
Okay, Albert, if you don't mind putting.
You turn the mic on.
The planning areas, but we plan to go from north, and so you can kind of see Gibson Canyon Creek. We're building the bridge first, going across the bridge. So as soon as you get across the bridge, you can see that on your left-hand side, there's that area that's a small lot development area. That's what we want to go in first.
Okay.
And then the big beige area is apartment site. We plan to build an apartment site about midpoint. That's what we did in AP Area Plan 1. We built the apartment about halfway through AP1. And then we do have a provision in our development agreement that we will start building the park at 582nd permit, roughly about halfway point.
be a little off the wall. What do you do with all the cows? My daughter loves going out there and looking at the cows, man. Where are you going to put them? So I just need to know where I can go see them.
I'm sorry.
The cows that are currently out there,
Oh,
all that used to be vegetation, where are those being relocated to?
The cows are in the open space in that big
So
green
they're going
area.
to stay out there.
So they're going to stay out there.
That's amazing. Okay, I'm good for now.
Any additional questions? After the public comment, yeah. So while I have you up here, so I'm going to piggyback off Commissioner Rudin. She talked about the business park and the open space through there because that's on my notes. We preach connectivity here with all new development now. So my question is going back, did I hear you commit to that we will have a trail along the open space through the business park? And will we have trails that will connect all of the open space to the community park?
Yes, we will. Albert, I think we have a figure in the park master plan that shows our trail connection.
Okay.
We actually, with our current proposal, area plan 2, the application before you, there will be much better connection through, connecting all the focal points, open space areas, providing a path, multiple paths to the park, both parks.
Perfect, perfect. And then piggybacking off of Commissioner Wilkerson, we don't want up at this dais a repeat of our Southtown apartment complex. So I think this is a great land use plan in that we have a school, a park site, high density, and then your middle housing. So we're transitioning into the middle or medium density housing into the low density to avoid any complications with any future neighbors. And it sounds like the plan is going to have the high density identified early and out there for the residents that will be coming to follow. So the park, you're getting fee credits for the park. What is the difference? Gap funding, you're providing how much in funding for the construction of the park?
We're estimating we're going to be providing about over $1 million in subsidy.
Over $1 million in subsidies.
Right. So we're getting partial credit for the park. We're not getting full credit. We're only getting credit for the neighborhood park portion of the park impact fee.
So your credits are here, completion is here.
Yes.
We're short $1 million and you're providing that in construction.
Right. And that does not include the dog park. We're not getting any credit for the dog park. Correct. So that's a dog park land and construction costs, another $1.5 million.
Staff hour. You said in the presentation this was new. Have we had an applicant construct a park or contribute above and beyond the impact fees that were short?
This is new. This is
the only one?
definitely, this is the city's effort to move towards making sure that these parks are built around 50% of the development. So that way they're getting installed at a due appropriate time for when residents can actually start using them. And this is the first example of our efforts to try and make that happen.
Perfect. Very generous of you for the residents that will be in AP2. Going back to the school site, we're dedicating a school site. If we come down that path that for some reason Vacaville Unified School District does not use the school site and go vertical for construction, how does and what does the property revert back to? What will the zoning be, Albert? And is there an opportunity for a private or charter school to acquire that property if Vacaville Unified doesn't build? And if everybody defines at what zoning are we at?
So the zoning as proposed tonight is residential low medium density, which allows schools as a permitted use. So it fits both categories.
Okay.
Certainly there's a tier of what occurs. First is the VUSD acquisition of the site, but if that does not happen, there's a second tier, which private school could come in and utilize the site. We'll defer to the applicant as to what would be their preference as far as acquisition if they intend to. Yes, VUSD first wants dibs at the site first, and then if they don't want it, what would they do next? I'll let Doug be the one that explains what that intention is.
Well, first of all, we would prefer the VUSD acquire the site and build a public school. That's our preference. And we've been working with Vacaville Unified School District on the site for the past several years. In fact, I have a meeting with the school district tomorrow about acquisition of the site. And to avoid any cash out by VUSD, we're looking at different options, perhaps a partial exchange or some other mechanism. But that's in discussions with the USD. So our preference is a public school on that site. No, and I think in all likelihood, the USD will acquire the site because the school board already made a decision, a policy level decision that the priority school site on the north part of Vacaville is within North Village. And then there was another priority area in the south part of town. And I believe that the USD may have a rep here today, right? So they can go into more detail on that. So that's our preference. Now, in the event that the USD does not acquire a site, yes, we are fully open to discussions with a private school operator.
Okay, I have one more question, then I'll ask Commissioner Lightfoot has a question for you. City Attorney, if I go out of my purview here, you'll rein me back in. Have you ever, or your organization, have you ever gone into a private partners, public relationship or partnership with the school district in that you as the applicant build the school and do a long-term lease back to the school district? Have you guys ever done that?
We have not done that. We have inter partnerships with private special schools, private special needs schools, and we have actually built these schools for the special needs school operators.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I'm going to open up to Commissioner Lightfoot.
Just while we're on that topic, is there a term or a time limit that Vacaville Unified School District has to make the purchase, or what are the terms involved with the timeline of converting that or that property?
There's no timeline. We did enter into an agreement with Vacaville Unified School District when when they did not acquire the school site in AP1. We made a commitment to Vacaville School that we will reserve a site in AP2 for them. There's no deadline for that. But we're hoping that happens tomorrow. They can acquire the site.
Still confused at what the action from Vacaville Unified School District would be to, how long they have to acquire it, but maybe that'll be answered.
Yes, I think I'm.
We have the top,
Yeah. There's no deadline from the developer that we have an agreement with them that we're going to reserve a site, and we will reserve a site.
Okay, let's hold on to that. We'll go into this.
Okay.
We'll have backup. Okay, give it up. For Marcus.
Mr. Chen, thank you for your time and for your presentation. Actually, you answered my question. It was surrounding the proposed amendment and the inclusion of charter schools and whether or not private schools included in that. So that was already answered, I think.
Wilkerson.
Back to the park real quick. Well, this park, the first park that was built out there, Caneros Park. Who was that built by? Was that built by you guys, or was that built by the city?
That was built by the city per our original development agreement. The developer dedicated the land, and the city collected the parking impact fees and constructed the park.
Okay, so your park that you're designing is I've been to that park with my children. Obviously, it's going to look grander and bigger and be completed at the time, correct?
It will be done
Finished
sooner.
park.
It will be done sooner than the park in the AP1.
Okay.
Our commitment is to start construction at the exact number, I believe, 82nd permit.
And any particular reason why there's no basketball court?
I'm sorry.
Any particular reason why there's no basketball court?
I would like to replace one of the tennis courts with a basketball court, but that's really working with park staff. They have a preference for the tennis court.
We're doing good, Mr. Chen.
Just make sure that the commission is aware, we do have one of our park planners available to help clarify exactly why we have the park designed this particular way.
Have any additional questions for Mr. Chen? No, we're good for now. I would like to open up the public comment and actually ask Vacaville Unified School District to step up first and answer some questions.
Good evening. I'm Dan Banowitz. I'm the Director of Facilities for Vacaville Unified. So if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Ralph, I'm going to jump you back in if you have questions.
So I'm just, my question behind the timeline for the conversion is, does Vacaville Unified School District going to have adequate time to acquire the scheduled area for the school? And because I hate for you to lose the opportunity.
Well, we're in discussion on the property now. And as Doug said, we have a meeting tomorrow to further those discussions. It does take some time because acquiring property is not the easiest thing for a school district to do. And it's money, right? It costs money. So we are looking at other options on, do we have to avoid the outlay of money? We look at property that we have currently, and is a land swap, something that we can look at. There's all the things that we're looking at right now for this site.
And this is your number one school site currently?
We don't have a number one school site. There's two things that come to, for us building a school. One is it's $40 to $50 million to build an elementary school these days, right? In current construction costs. We don't get enough in developer fees to generate that much with the amount of homes that are being built in this area. So there's a gap in the money. We also have to have the kids to fill it, because the only thing worse than not being able to build a school is building a school that's empty and you don't have the kids to fill it, right? And we're talking on this development alone, they're talking about it could be 20 years to build out. So, as they don't pay their fees that they do pay until they pull permits, right? So if it takes them 20 years to pull the permits and I don't get those fees, that's even less money that I have to build the school, and I don't have the kids in the neighborhood to fill it. So there's not an easy answer of, yeah, we're going to run out there and build a school or any of that right now.
Satisfied?
I think so.
Commissioner Wilkerson, floor is yours.
How are you?
Good. How are you, John?
Good to see you. Sorry, you're the representative, so you're going to get some of the tough questions. You just said 40 million right now to build a school.
40 to 50 for an elementary school that can handle up to 600 kids, yes.
And how much of that you guys got right now? You get couple mil?
Yeah. I mean, we have developer fees that are paid through all the development throughout the city. Right. But, there are rules. This is the restricted funding. So the developer fees that I get from, for example, all the apartments built on the south side of town, I can't use that to build a school in the north side of town, right? It has to mitigate the impact of the development in that area. So, I want to say, it's open, I believe, at the last board meeting when we went through our audited actuals, it was around 15 million that we have in developer fees. But that's not just from this area, right? It's from all over town.
How many kids currently live out in North Village that would attend the K-6?
Well, right now, and we just happened to be, looking at this. We did our IT director sent me an email today about there's 480 students in North Village right now. And that's just by us going through, picking out the school, the streets and figuring that out. But that's not just elementary school kids. That's all of them, right? That's K through 12. So I think by viewing this list, I didn't get the actual number, but it's approximately 300 that we have right now.
Okay. Is the bond that is going to be on the ballot tied to you making more money to help build the school?
It could be. I mean, I don't know. I'm not here to promote that.
Right. Fair. Let's say the bond that hypothetically doesn't pass. How would we go about getting you be able to acquire this land?
The bond has nothing to do with us acquiring the land.
Okay.
We're already working on it.
You're able to do this without the bond.
Yes, we can. We're on the way we're looking at it, we can do it now.
Okay.
It does come down to, okay, so even if a bond does pass and we have the money, we still have to have the kids, right? So as they're building this out, we're not going to be able to jump right out there and build the school because there's not enough kids in the neighborhood to justify it if I started building it in February, right?
What about talking about enrollment for the school district? Are we up or are we down?
We are currently down. We're up this year. But we were down around 430 through the COVID period. We're now up 200 from that. So we're getting closer.
Where are they going?
They're going all over the place. Right now we have
Private and charter?
some are going to charter, but for our district, we're up 200. I don't keep track of what the other ones are doing, right? So
Right. And you brought up the land swap. What other areas are you looking at to swap land?
we have some land in the north of Vacaville Parkway that the school district purchased years ago.
Can you be more specific?
The corner of Bryce McMurtry and Browns Valley.
How many acres?
We have 20.
And so would you be looking to swap the North Village land to put?
Well, I mean, that's a possibility,
Right.
but it's not going to be 20 for 12 and a half, I can tell you that, right?
Sure,
So
right.
it's going to be, we'll figure all that out.
So that corner, would you be able to, let's say you would be giving that away, or you want to build a school site there?
No, it would be if we went down this road, and I don't make that decision. That's my
100%.
board that makes that
Again,
decision,
that's why I said,
right?
I'm sorry.
You know that.
Yes, oh yeah, I definitely know.
If I go and recommend this to the board, it would be, whatever the amount that is assessed value of the 12 and a half acres North Village would have to be the same amount, right? It's a
Right.
swap. It's not,
Right.
Somebody can't make more than the other kind of thing.
Right.
Right. So that's all the stuff. I mean, this is not an easy process. It's something that takes a little while to do.
Okay. I'm good for now.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome. Dan, the homeowners that are out there currently, where are their children going to school?
They're going all over the place. I can look up right now. After I put my glasses on, getting older. If we go down this list, we have a number that are going to Callison Elementary, a number going to Cooper Elementary, some to Sierra Vista K-8. We have a couple going to Independent Study at the Kimmy Charter Academy. About 7 going to Alamo. 10 to 12 going to Markham Elementary. We've got a handful going to Fairmont Charter. And we have a large amount going to Wilsey Wood, a handful to Willis Jepson, Vacapania Middle School, Buckingham, and Vacaville High School.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions? From the commission? Nope. Dan, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay, I'm going to open up the public comment now. If you guys want to come up to the podium and speak, you have 3 minutes. Oh,
Chair Courtney?
yes.
I would recommend at this juncture, Chair Klein, Vice Chair Courtney, Chair Klein, if you plan to participate as a member of the public, that you clarify that for the record, since you'd previously indicated that you were recusing yourself and leaving the meeting, and it looks like now maybe you've changed your mind about how you want to participate this evening.
So I'm confused. I am not voting on this matter, and I have been outside, but I am a member of the public, right?
Yep, so you had said that you would leave the meeting until this item is over, and now we're in the middle of the public hearing, so the item isn't over. So I think you just need to clarify for the record what your intentions are regarding your participation right now.
Gotcha. Okay, I apologize for the misunderstanding. My intention is to speak as a member of the public about this project. I'm not here as the chair of the commission. I live in North Village, as I had mentioned earlier. I would like to exercise my First Amendment right, if it's okay. So do I get 3 minutes now, or do I wait?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I just want to make it clear to the commission that Chair Klein is allowed under law to participate in the public comment as a member of the public related to his personal interest with his property located in the project area.
So noted. Thank you very much. And Mr. Klein.
Great. I am speaking as a member of the public, and I appreciate the opportunity to address the commission. I believe this is a very simple case. I oppose the project. I don't see the public benefit. the existing agreement is perfect. There's some changes that you need to make, but I specifically as to the lack of the school being outzoned. But I believe that as commissioners, you should look at the public benefit, and to the extent the public benefits from the big parts of the plan, such as removing the swim club. That's a massive public benefit that is being removed. It's under the existing development agreement. I'm not clear who benefits from removing that. The school. It's an unsettled issue. I'd love to see a little more leadership around that. I know that I'm not on the school board. I'm not before the school board, excuse me. But I don't find any comfort in the fact that we have not built the school in this community in 30 years. And the people of North Village have consistently been given unsatisfactory options for school. So extending the development agreement for 4 decades or whatever it is, I don't recall. How does that get us? How does that get us to the school question quicker? It doesn't. And I believe that there are people of goodwill on both sides. I don't see how this would help the situation. My final issue that I would like to address to your attention is I would urge you to join the Parks Commission. They voted no. This is not a complex thing. This is not like some state provision where we have mandates that we must follow. We get to just stand by the people of Vacaville. You don't really get that opportunity very often. But I would urge you to look at your friends and talk to them if you haven't already, who live in that community. And obviously, I take that back. You can't do that tonight. But the public comment being unanimous, as far as I can tell, I don't know who else might be here for public comment, but I had to stand up and say something. Because I believe the public's not here because this item is so confusing for the people of North Village to know when this meeting even was. My neighbors we've received 4 different notices saying different things. And so imagine like how difficult it is to get public to show up and to understand like these issues are very complex. I think that this is a very unfair proceeding. I don't necessarily think that you have an easy choice to make all the time, but tonight it's super easy, guys. I urge a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak? I'm down.
I am a senior engineer at Solano Irrigation District. My name is Nancy McWilliams.
Thank you, Nancy.
And so I was just reading through the conditions of approval, and I understand it's the city's policy to not include external agencies in their conditions of approval. So one piece that was identified as Shellhammer Lane that's owned by SID, and there's a condition on that. But we have an agreement separate with the developer. The developer is fully aware of this. The city's staff is fully aware of this. We've all been working really well together, but I just wanted to state for the record that we would like the city to, just to state for the record that we have our conditions, that we would like to make sure that those are all met before the improvement plans for these developments are approved. So that's pretty much all it is, since our conditions are not in the conditions of approval, just to let you know that we're out here because we have 2 big facilities that are impacted.
Great.
That's
Thank
all.
you. Director Morris, can you respond to that question, or would that, Albert, please.
Yes, I can. As representative from Solano Irrigation District, Nancy Williams mentioned, we've all been working well together. Other agencies have been involved in our day-to-day, month-to-month meetings with the applicant concerning certain improvements that are necessary. As SID mentioned, there is some substantial facilities from SID that are located within this project, and we've worked with them, with SID as well as the applicant, to arrive at a solution as part of what to do with these facilities. Typically what occurs as part of this project is if a decision is made on a project like this to approve it, there's a series of improvements that have to be reviewed in greater detail by the city staff, by other responsible agencies as part of this project. The comments that have been provided by Solano Irrigation District have been shared with the applicant, so they're fully aware of what's necessary in order to be able to meet SID's requirements for project submittal. What I can tell you is that as part of our review process for public improvement plans, final maps, we're also looking to see what's going to happen with these facilities. And we have to know for a fact that there has been resolution with Solano Irrigation District on these facilities and how they're going to be undergrounded or how they're going to be moved prior to the approval of any improvement plans within, say, for instance, Midway Road. So we currently have procedures in place where we work with other agencies to ensure that Solano Irrigation District's conditions are being addressed prior to moving forward with allowing the applicant to move with improvement plans. Also, the applicant is here to attest to the conversations that we've been working with Solano Irrigation District, and they can attest, we're all in one accord as far as what's necessary to make those improvements.
Thank you. Mr. Chen, would you like to respond? SID is a great public partner with the city of Vacaville, so make us feel better.
Yes. So we recognize that we do have an agreement. We do have a development agreement with the Solano Irrigation District, SID, as well as VUSD. So and we added a provision in the conditions of approval at the very top saying that these conditions, the city's conditions, do not supersede the agreements the developer has with SID and with VUSD. So we're of course, we're going to honor those agreements.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Anybody else from the public would like to speak? Seeing no one else, I'm actually going to close the public hearing and bring it back to Commissioner Wilkerson. You have a question or comment?
Question regarding this applicant in this process. Has this been filed as part of SB 330?
This project now.
Okay. Regarding the why was the swim club taken out?
Do you mind putting the land use map, the general plan map back on the screen? So the swim club, in the existing general plan, the swim club was located where the E is located, roughly about 3 acres. So under the existing general plan, it was already taken out as it stands. So what we're proposing is to expand the land use allowed in the 54-acre business park is to allow for a fitness club, specifically allow for a swim center there. So if a private developer, a fitness center developer wants to build a fitness club within the business park, that'll probably take about maybe 4 or 5 acres. They can do so. And we can still do it. When we form a master HOA for AP2, if there's sufficient interest, we can pursue a fitness center developer to build a fitness center, swim center, tennis club, whatever they may be in the business park. So we're not eliminating it, which is saying that the current land use in the general plan already took that away, and we're trying to put it back.
Right. Right. So that original designation was for a private swim club that someone had to pay for, correct? And
Yes.
be a part of.
Exactly.
So you're now stating, hey, instead of paying for the private swim club, we're offering you other options, potentially the HOA with the apartments, or potentially with any fitness company that may come in that you're still going to have to pay to be a part of. Is that correct?
Right. The swim club was always going to be an exclusive type of club. Sure. And what we're proposing to do is that, we like the facility, the recreational facilities to be open to all. For example, a dog park. So we're proposing to build a dog park with no credit and no cost reimbursement that everyone can use. It doesn't
So any current homeowner who lives there now will have the opportunity to either use the public facilities that we have throughout the city of Vacaville to
Right.
go to swim,
Right.
or they can go join the HOA regarding the apartment complex that'll be built after 586 homes, I think you said,
Right.
or the fitness. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So in my mind, that would seem to fit the want and the need, because anywhere else in those large lots, they potentially have the opportunity to, I know it's costly, but to build a pool themselves,
Right.
or make friends, as the public comment was, and see if any of their friends have pools.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lightfoot.
So piggybacking on the pool conversation, so originally or did you have something you wanted to add to that? Looked like you might have.
Just a point of clarification for the record, on that map that you identified, there is a small text error that says E. We did go back and as part of our development review process, check to clarify whether or not the blue designation, what it represented. So the original approval for Area Plan 2 had that blue designation for the swim club because it was the public community facility was the designation to represent a swim club. When the Solana Airport Land Use Compatibility, the Land Use Commission decided that the school and Area Plan 1 would not work, the developer sought to change the land use designation within Area Plan 1 to build single-family homes on that school site, and that's what you'll see there off of Parkside Drive. But as part of that amendment that occurred, I think it was around 2012, there was a provision that was added as part of the general plan that said reserve a school site within Area Plan 2. That has not been done yet. The developer is proposing to comply with that. This blue marker that's on the left side of your screen still represents the approximate location that was approved in the general plan for where a community facility like a private swim club was supposed to be located. So the reservation of a school site within our general plan just hasn't been done yet, and that's what this application also includes.
You want to comment on that?
Oh, no, yes, I mean, we are trying to reserve a 12.5 acre site with an AP2 with a school site. And, that little E was a placeholder, was never going to be big enough. It's only 3 acres.
Okay, so originally in the development of the swim club, who was going to bear the costs of building the pool?
It was going to be a private swim club, so either going to be done through a private recreational developer or through a master HOA. Providing that there's sufficient interest, both in providing an initial capital cost and also the operational cost. A swim club is fairly expensive to maintain, and as the city knows.
So the developer had it was going to be funded by the HOA in the area that was that?
Well, it could be funded by either through a master HOA or it could be funded through a private fitness developer. We were going to set aside the land to accommodate that, just as we set aside land for parks and for school. But it's not, it's not saying that we're building a swim club.
Just a point of clarification, the development agreement doesn't obligate the developer to construct a swim club.
Mm-hmm. That's all I got.
Before we wrap up here, I don't know if Mr. Chen, if you want to stay there, I do have a couple quick questions, Albert. So we're looking at this. If we don't move forward with the development agreement amendment, there is no new park constructed. We revert back to the developer just identifying parkland, doing some frontage improvements and grading, correct? And then the city's on the nickel or building the park at a future time.
Correct.
Where if we approve the development amendment, we're full blow and we get a park.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Real quick, let me finish this. We had some communication from a private school. There was, in your presentation and as being a tenant in the business park area that you were referring to, we had language in there for charter schools and some others. Would a private school be allowed with the language that is to be a tenant in there?
No, it would not. The definition within our land use and development code identifies schools as a variety of different options: private schools, public schools, charter schools. The proposal as part of this project specifically identifies charter schools only. The letter we are aware of, and we have provided an avenue for consideration for this applicant should this particular project move forward that incorporates charter schools. There would be an avenue for consideration of whether a private school could go into the business park that's identified in the bottom half of the screen. As I mentioned before, the portion that's located along North Village Parkway would not be able to accommodate a school because it's conflicting with the airport land use compatibility plan.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Vargas.
Yeah, so I'm noting the lack of public comment or just public in general. So Senior Planner, if you could clarify that there was a concern about the noticing, 4 different notices. Can you clarify that? Was there any discrepancy in the noticing?
No discrepancy in the noticing. The notices that have been provided since, I believe it was June, advertising the first meeting that was continued to July to August to September, here we are, was the same language, same notice that identified it was the same number of residents that it was mailed out to each particular time to ensure that everybody was getting the same information notifying. And at each particular planning commission meeting, where it was identified on the agenda, each meeting, we identified that it would be postponed to the next meeting. So usually sufficient notification is provided at those meetings to let everybody know you can expect it for the next meeting, but we went above and beyond by providing that additional notice via mail, so that way everybody received it via mail, and anybody who watched the meeting that identified it was going to be postponed would know, would pay attention to the next planning commission meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, commissioners, any additional comments or questions? Now's your time. Commissioner Rudin.
Okay, mine's more of just a comment, again, back to what I said before, that I really appreciate the diversity and the type of housing. And on that, I'd like to make a motion.
Hold off on the motion.
No problem.
Yes.
Figure out how to say it.
Commissioner Lightfoot.
Just to tackle a loose end that I saw, that I think I need more information on. Can you explain staff's recommendation for not approving the storage aspect of the applicant's request and how? Yeah, can you explain that?
The commission need not make any amendments to the current recommendation that's before them. It includes changes that the applicant will be needing to make after the project, should it be approved. They make further amendments to the specific plan to address those changes that were required by the conditions of approval. Again, the commission doesn't need to make any amendments. It's already identified in the conditions of approval.
Good. Yep. Mr. Chen, I think we're good with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I am going to come back to Commissioner Rudin.
I'm going to do my best with this one. I'd like to make a motion to approve and adopt an amendment to the North Village Development Project Environmental Impact Report and reaffirm the North Village Development Project EIR in accordance with Section 15164 of the California Environmental Quality Act, and adopt a general plan map amendment and zoning map amendments for North Village Area Plan 1 and Plan 2 as depicted by attachment 2, and adopt a second amendment to the development agreement by and between the City of Vacaville and Discovery Builders Incorporated as depicted by attachment 3, and adopt a specific plan amendment to the North Village specific plan as depicted by attachment 4, subject to conditions of approval, and approve a vesting tentative map for North Village Area Plan 2 as depicted by attachment 4, subject to conditions of approval.
We have a motion by Commissioner Rudin and a second by Commissioner Wilkerson.
Vice Chair Fortney, before you go to a vote, I just want to make it clear that this is by simple motion, a recommendation that the city council do all the things that are listed in the motion.
Did I not need to say that?
Yeah, you're gonna say it again.
Actually,
Can she amend it to include that?
to provide some clarity and assistance, a good form for the motion is up on the screen with the staff recommendation.
Oh, we're going to make you read again.
That's what I thought I was
Yeah,
reading.
no.
Commissioner Rudin, now you get it again.
I get it.
Okay, I'd like to make a simple motion by recommendation that recommend that the city council reaffirm the North Village Project EIR, approve the general plan amendment, adopt the zoning map amendment and development agreement amendment, approve the North Village specific plan amendment and vesting tentative map.
Second.
Got that, Nancy, correct? And we have roll call vote?
Commissioner Vargas.
Yes.
Commissioner Lightfoot. Commissioner Rudine.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkerson. Vice Chair Fortney.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Do we need disposition, or do you need to read that back, or are we good? We're good. Okay. I'm going to propose we take a 5-minute recess after that item. Thank you.
I am.
No action is required. All right.
Informational only. He's indisposed. He'll be.
Okay. Well, thank you for that recess. We'll go ahead and reconvene with the next item. Ira, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight's final item is an informational discussion regarding the public review draft of our housing element. Here with me tonight is Jenny Gastelum. She is, I believe, a principal planner with Placework, is the planning consultant we have hired to help us with this endeavor. And with that, I would like to turn it over to her to present the draft housing element.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. I need to get closer.
You're good.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm going to keep you awake here and go through a really super fun presentation on housing, which shouldn't put anyone to sleep. So we're going to do an overview of the housing element. We're going to talk about the regional housing needs allocation process. We're going to delve into the sites inventory a little bit. We're going to talk about the new laws regarding fair housing, and then go over the implementation programs and then let you know the schedule moving forward. All right, so some of this is obviously a refresher for you, but the housing element is one of the required elements of the general plan, and it is unique in the fact that it has to be certified by the state of California. We refer to them as HCD, the Housing and Community Development Department. We are currently in the 5th cycle of the housing element, which will take us through January 31st. And we're drafting right now before you is the draft of the 6th cycle housing element, which will take us from January 2023 through January 2031. The adoption deadline is January 31st. However, there is a 120-day extension period for you to work out kinks with HCD to get into compliance and all those things. And the reason for the housing element is to accommodate each jurisdiction's fair share of the regional housing needs allocation. And I'll get more into what that means. So as part of this process, HCD came out with some additional funding sources this round, which has been very helpful. So the state gave money to, in this case, ABAG, all the councils across the state, and then offered it up to the local, in this case, the Solano Transportation Authority. And with that money, we were able to do some of the pieces of the housing element, as you see, as a regional and as a cost savings, as well as more collaborative to be able to identify issues across the whole region. So with some of that money, we were able to create a housing needs assessment that reflects all the jurisdictions within Solano County. And then we took a regional approach to the fair housing assessment, which is a new chapter for everyone's housing element. Now, this fair housing assessment has to be done, on a regional basis, which each jurisdiction would have had to do their own regional analysis, and then you have to do your individual analysis. So that way there was a cost savings to doing the regional piece as a larger group for the fair housing. And just so you are aware what detail goes into the fair housing section, I believe the regional section was about 50 pages, and each jurisdiction's individual fair housing section was about 65 pages. So I think the whole fair housing section was about 500 pages of maps and detail that the state is now requiring to be included in the housing element. So it's a little bit beefier of an already very technical, beefy document. The sites inventory is what will mostly want to focus on and look at. The constraints, we do look at what potential constraints there are. We look at your building permit process. We look at your fees to identify what possible issues there might be to actually constructing housing within the community. We also do a checks and balances process where we look at your previous programs and we look at what programs were effective, what programs were accomplished, which ones weren't, what reasons why. And that's called the evaluation of the past performance. And then that feeds into the new goals and policies and programs. So we carry forward what should be carried forward and we add in all the stuff. Over this last 8 years, there's been a number of zoning code changes. I'm sure you've heard of. There's density bonus, there's second unit, the ADU unit, accessibility. There's been a number of state required changes that will need to be amended in your zoning code. So there's a listing, a long, lengthy listing of programs that after the adoption of the housing element, then you'll update your zoning code to reflect all the new state laws. So with this regional process, we have been able to do a lot of outreach, but simultaneously, the city also took on the comprehensive housing strategy. So you guys have been working diligently on housing issues here while we've been collecting information regionally. We did a number of workshops. When we started this project, it was very early on in the pandemic and holding public workshops was not a thing. And so we needed to get information on your populations that are underserved in the community, homeless, seniors, students, all of those. So we started doing consultations. We did interviews with all the service providers throughout the region to identify what the needs of their clients are. And that helps to populate what the needs assessment as well as your programs and where to focus over this next 8-year period. We also did a survey in English as well as Spanish and one other language. I think Tagalog was the other language. So we tried to get as much information from as many members of the community as possible. We also are simultaneously updating the safety element and the environmental justice element. So there are 2 additional project managers that you'll see at some point that are going to be presenting the safety and the environmental justice element. So we are here today with the draft of the housing element, which has to go through a 30-day public review period. And I'll get more into that schedule. But we have done quite a number of workshops related to identifying needs and gathering input on fair housing to feed into the document. And this is all required by the state. Okay, the regional housing needs allocation process, RHNA, as what we call it. So the state comes up with a growth projection over an 8-year period. That growth projection then is divvied out to all the councils of governments, in your case, ABAG. ABAG's RHNA was about 441,000. And then ABAG, in this case, does a methodology to divvy it out. Solano took a different approach and you created your own consortium and you did your own RHNA divvying out through your own process. So you got a number, the county got a whole number from ABAG. ABAG could have done it, but Solano County took it on and hired other associates of mine to actually create it, who had done it the previous 8 years ago as well. So had a little bit of familiarity to it. So next slide. That number then got divvied out to Vacaville. And just as a frame of reference, your previous RHNA was 1,084. And for the 6th cycle, it went up it's 139% to 2,595. Now, it's important to recognize that RHNA is a goal and it is the requirement of the city to show that you have land available and to identify programs to help facilitate the development of this housing. The city is not in the business of building housing. The city will not build these units. It is the job of the city to show that you have land available and programs to help facilitate development to occur. With this Solano County sub-regional distribution, Vacaville's percentage of the RHNA is 23%. So you can see this pie chart here of how it was kind of divvied out across. And from what I'm told, this is a similar distribution of how it was within the last planning period as well. So the job of the housing element is to show that there's enough sites, land available at varying densities to accommodate this 2,595 units. It is broken out by the 4 income categories here. When we look at the very low and low income categories, we're looking at, as you see on the right-hand side of this column, you're looking at a high density product. Now, Vacaville was in a very unique situation, which I kind of threw a fit about, but your population went over 100,000, and therefore your default density went up to 30 units an acre. And we tried to say that they couldn't change it in the middle of the planning cycle, so I tried, but HCD disagreed with me. And so your default density is 30 units an acre, which means we have to show that you have land available at 30 units an acre to meet the high density. If you were under that 100,000 mark, then your default density would be 20 units an acre. So nevertheless, there is mixed use as well as high density residential that will accommodate those units. Your medium income units is 409. And we look at a medium dense product like a duplex or attached housing type products, and in the 8 to 14, and as well as mixed use can also accommodate your moderate income. And then above moderate is all of your single family homes. No deed restrictions associated. So in the 1 to 8 units a category. So, next slide. So who are we talking about when we talk about, we talk about default density, we talk about 30 units an acre. And so this is just kind of a frame of reference of thank you. We're freezing over here. This is just a frame of reference of typical occupations of some of the population that we're talking about in the lower income categories. Part-time employees, residents that are on Social Security, those are in the extremely low income categories, and very low income personal care aides and veterinary assistants. And then low income, which is the 54 to 86,000, which doesn't seem very low income, but for a family of 4, that is lower income. Graphic designers, social workers, and mail carriers. So we are talking about individuals in your community that need housing, that need high density type housing products. And we need to make sure that there is land available to be able to accommodate that type of housing so that it cuts down on traffic and health and all those issues to be able to allow people to live where they work. Okay, so the next is a summary of sites. The first slide is kind of the base summary. So again, broken out into these income categories, the lower meaning the 30 units an acre. So we look at your pipeline projects, which you have a number of projects in the works. So we count those differently than we count land. So we take those initially off the top. So based on the projects that are foreseen to develop within this next 8-year period is the 5,859. Then we look at your sites inventory, and then we also look at anticipated ADUs. Again, ADUs are second units. We are able to project out. Those are not tied to individual lots or individual units, but it's based on how many permits the city is getting. And then we project out for this next 8-year period. So we're anticipating 66. Of course, if more ADUs come online, you get credit for everyone that actually gets developed. So based on that, there is a capacity of 8,288 with a surplus in that last category. So the surplus is necessary because not everything's going to develop and not everything is going to come forward, and maybe the ADUs don't come forward and maybe the pipeline projects get stalled. We want to make sure that the city has enough comfort that you and your council can approve projects that maybe don't fit all of those numbers, but that we're always maintaining a land inventory balance to meet the RHNA either with approved projects or with sites. So this just gives you more flexibility as projects come forward for you to be able to approve things. All right, so this is, we have a lot of maps here, but basically, as you're looking through the document, we'll just kind of speed through these. But the yellow is the pipeline projects, and green is your vacant sites, and red is underutilized sites. And underutilized sites is a category that requires a little bit more explanation to the state. If it is underutilized, and what is actually on the site, and then what is the potential that more development will occur on that site? Is whatever on the site, a barn, a house, whatever it is it going to be removed? Is it going to stay? And what is the likelihood that that will happen within the next 8 years? So I want to keep going through these, but you can, there's more detail in the document, but this kind of gives you an overview of the different areas. It's also important as part of fair housing that we're identifying land available throughout the whole city. This is a fair housing issue. We can't identify just a couple sites in one part of town and not any other parts of town. So I think my staff have worked very closely with city staff here to come up with a really great land inventory, as you can see, that includes sites throughout the community that are based on projects coming forward, underutilized, as well as vacant sites. There's a lot of them. Anything specific? Some of these things have been talked about, the specific plans and the phasing, all of that has to be included in the document. So, okay. All right, the fair housing section now. So this is, like I said, the newest piece of the housing element. And we have to analyze issues in the region as well as in the community and identify housing sites that foster inclusive communities. And that's why I talked about we need to make sure we have sites available throughout the whole community and not just in one specific area. We talked to the stakeholders to identify potential barriers to fair housing. We've identified a number of programs that will help combat discrimination and displacement. And so there's a pretty hefty program in the housing element that includes all of these fair housing pieces that staff will be implementing over the next 8-year period. Same, I kind of already covered what the goals were. And one thing we have to do is overlay the fair housing maps that the state has created where they talk about areas of poverty and they talk about income levels and education attainment and what the issues are. So the highest resource areas are the areas with the highest incomes and the best schools and, our complete communities. The moderate is where you can start to see where some of the issues are. And so that's why the housing element is so thick with maps. So it goes through what all of those issues are, where the lower incomes are, where there are areas of segregation potentially. And so not only is it important when we're looking at the land inventory to make sure that we have sites that are within the higher or moderate resourced areas, but also within the higher segregation and poverty areas to hopefully re-incentivize and rejuvenate those areas as well. So it's about, building up areas that need more and then distributing housing throughout the rest of the community. And the implementation programs. So there are 11 programs that are continuing without modifications that are just programs that you have on a regular basis. What's really important to think about is when we're looking at the programs is that city staff has to respond to HCD on an annual basis and report back the progress on each of these programs. And the state has actually come up with a whole new division called the Enforcement Division. So they will be monitoring and tracking these things. So we try to make realistic programs that will be helpful for the city to maintain and continue. So there are 28 programs that are modified, and a lot of the modifications have to do with a lot of the new state laws of where zoning code changes and stuff. And then there are 12 new programs that were incorporated based on things that city staff is doing right now, including the comprehensive housing strategy and fair housing related programs. So I've talked kind of ad nauseum on 686, which is the fair housing. And so we associated, I'm sure you're sick of hearing me talk about that now, but a couple other programs here. So SB 166, this is where I'm talking about maintaining that surplus. You always have to be able to maintain enough land to meet your RENA, either through vacant sites or projects that have actually developed. And so 166 is called no net loss. It's a law that you have to maintain. And so while the city staff will have to report to HCD on programs, city staff will also have to report on number of units that are getting building permits, number of units that are getting certificates of occupancy, number of ADUs that are getting approved. And so these are all things that have to be reported on an annual basis. And then AB 1397 is also new to this housing element. And basically it's kind of we call it the kick the can program, because you included vacant sites in your land inventory during your 4th cycle housing element and again in your 5th cycle housing element, and you're going to include them in your 6th cycle. HCD is asking, why are these sites still vacant? What's wrong with them? Why haven't they developed? So their way of incentivizing this is that you have to allow housing by right if a project comes that is consistent with your objective design and development standards, if a project comes in that's 20% affordable. So in this case, there's only 4 sites in your inventory, and they're noted in the land inventory with the asterisk that tell you which 4 sites those are. So just so no one's panicking that it's your whole city or anything. It is 4 sites. Basically, it says if someone comes in that wants to do an affordable 20% affordable project that you have and meets all the development design standards, it has to be approved ministerially through the planning department and can't go to public hearings. That's the way HCD sees that they're helping to incentivize these sites that haven't. Now, whether that will work or not, the proof's kind of in the pudding. I guess we'll see if that actually does help. Okay, planning zoning code amendments. All of 4 of these bullets here have to do with changes to state law that have occurred in the last few years, allowing for employee housing, single room occupancies, making sure that they're allowed in at least one zoning district, mobile homes on single family lots that have a permanent foundation. And then low barrier navigation shelters is kind of like a wraparound homeless shelter situation. So some minor tweaks to those things there. And the same with all of these. That's why I said there's quite a lot of them. Making sure you have the correct definition of family, which is 2 or more persons with a common kitchen unit. It doesn't have to say that it has to be a mother, father, and 2 children anymore. Making sure that those changes are in there. And emergency shelters, updating some parking standards, making sure that there is adequate parking at shelters. These are all the programs that are continuing, not much to report there. And then again, these are ones that are modifying, and which I kind of just went into the high level ones of those. And then new programs. So some of the things, these are reflective of things that came out of the housing strategy, including looking into an inclusionary housing ordinance and citywide densities and zoning, knowing that your default density went from 20 to 30, making some modifications there, making sure that you're removing non-governmental constraints where possible, updating your accessory dwelling unit, junior ADU dwelling unit, and then sites in the previous cycle, 60 days, and it went to 90 days now. So 30-day public review period plus the 90-day HCD review. We will receive comments back from them in early 2023. And depending on the severity of the comments, since I mentioned that we are doing this for most all the cities in Solano County, there is I think there's 2 ahead of you. So we're hoping to get their comments from those and be able to apply them to yours to help streamline your document through. But what we are seeing out of Southern California's HCD reviews is 2 rounds of review with HCD. So while that's never my goal, it just due to their work level and the fact that they are doing so many housing elements, we are conservatively planning for 2 reviews. So we will be back here in the spring for adoption. And that's it.
Great. Thank you very much for that perfect presentation. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Lightfoot.
Thank you very much. I just have a quick question, just because I don't quite understand SB 166 and how does city go about complying with that land in inventory, land to audit?
Sure. Yeah. So you.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you mind going back in the slides just so we can see?
Oh, it's slide number 30.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no problem. So right now you are meeting 166. We are showing that you have enough sites available to meet your RENA. Projects will come forward. And so those planning projects, if one of the pipeline projects or something comes forward and we're planning on that we anticipated for, let's say 100 units, and it comes in at 50 units because of some sort of issue with the project. We want to make sure that we had a surplus so that if we only get 50 units out of something we anticipated 100 units out of, we still have enough other sites available to show that in that category, we still have land available to meet your RENA. What happens is if we only had enough sites to meet your RENA and a project came in at 50 and we planned for 100, the law says that you have 180 days that you would have to rezone another site to show that you have enough land to meet that RENA. Does that make sense?
Yes, so
Okay.
it's not technically more land or enough land. It's designated sites.
At varying densities, yeah,
Gotcha.
to meet the RENA. Yeah.
Yeah, great presentation, very thorough, easy to digest. My question is, you mentioned ACD now has an enforcement arm. So it's probably self-funded, so they're looking for fines to justify the employees that are there. We're identifying sites. When a housing cycle ends, we've identified the sites, but we've never if we don't come close to building those units, what are the ramifications to Vacaville? Or what are the ramifications to Solano as a whole if the county doesn't meet those arena numbers or actually build out at the end of a housing cycle?
And, I just to clarify, each funding says, what do you mean?
So if there's an enforcement arm, to keep that enforcement arm going, who's funding it? Is it by fines, which a lot of departments there keep those deputies or whoever is involved at the state level of right there. It's that department runs on fines.
Okay, gotcha, sorry.
So in other words, the enforcement arm is probably looking for violations.
Right. So state law says this is a planning exercise. So again, we have to identify land at appropriate densities to accommodate development. You have to have programs to help facilitate development. We say that you'll meet with developers, you'll help incentivize this, you'll provide streamlining where possible. If it doesn't get built, the city did everything that they could to get built. The one thing that has come forward is 1397, which is if you keep counting these same sites and they aren't getting built, they've put on this 20% affordability on it now. So they're hoping to help incentivize sites that don't get built. If you're doing what the land exercise is of showing sites and helping to promote them, then you are doing the intent of housing element law. If it doesn't get built, the city is not a developer. You cannot build that. So you're doing what you can as a city. The city staff will be reporting on each of these programs annually as we've met with developers. We did this. We did this. We are trying to incentivize development.
So I guess look at that. We keep identifying the sites. At some point, if we don't start building enough units for the housing arena, we're going to lose total control and have more legislation down with the state allowing development.
But I mean,
Right now,
we're not worried about the enforcement.
So the enforcement is Southern California. If any of you have followed this process, it's a cluster of a mess. And the arena, I have a community that went from a 600 unit arena to 6,000, and they don't have any land and they can't find enough sites. So they're like top on the list right now. I mean, like, so it's the rezone situation that they're going to enforce. It's your code amendments they're going to enforce. They're going to be monitoring those things that you have committed to doing in your document. So there's a lot of cities that don't have enough land to meet the RENA. They have to rezone to meet their RENA. Those are where they're going to be focused on in those areas. And then they'll be, you know, I think behind that, and that's my speculation on what is going to be their highest priority. And then I would say making sure that you are doing your code amendments and making sure that you meeting state law on those types of things. That's what I believe the enforcement group to be tracked.
Very helpful.
Sure.
And that goes with this affirmatively furthering fair housing. This is also a new thing with the cycle, right?
Correct.
So affirmatively furthering as to issues of discrimination and some of the other problems that you earlier.
Correct.
I think that enforcement is not just about one thing.
Correct.
Multi-dimensional. But it sounds like Vacaville's doing great. Commissioner Wilkerson.
You go to the slide that has ADUs on it, please.
Go back
I didn't
on
write it
the
down.
land inventory. Right at the beginning of.
Because there was a lot of talk, and we got a lot of presentations and regarding ADUs, but you're not anticipating in the next 8 years, you're anticipating 66 total units. Is there, what's the reason behind that, do you think?
So this was a big, this as well as SB9 were two things that all of the Southern California cities were going to try to use to meet the RENA. And actually in the SACOG region as well. I had one jurisdiction who said, well, we did one ADU, but we're going to do 100. Well, 5 times 8 is not 1,000.
Right.
So HCD pushed back very, very, very hard. So credit for it, but it is incredibly hard to predict ADUs. And so taking a conservative approach is a safer bet.
Okay, with that, jurisdictions around us are doing ADUs. However, some of them are in backyards with no power, no water. What would our
You are allowed to work to bring it into compliance with various health and safety standards. So it's, and I kid you not, you look surprised. The state has really taken seriously this mission that if there's a potential for an ADU from a local credit union and ultimately make these things happen. So we actually believe that 66 number is really low compared to what the city's potential could be, but it isn't about sheds in someone's backyard with an extension cord. This is about creating quality housing.
I mean, that's unfortunately, I don't want to name cities, but that's it.
Housing Methodology Committee for ABAG for this cycle. And I was represented at the time of that process unfold. Where Solano is a little bit more unique, even more so than North Bay. And I think that in this cycle with the affirmative, with that affirmative mandate, that's where I think it'll be interesting to see how this cycle looks like next cycle, or
The presidential administration got rid of the fair housing issue or requirement. I'm curious to see how this part will play out and because are they going to try to enforce that or because they're pushing pretty hard on the number of units and number of individuals they want to see. They want everything quantified into measurable metrics. We don't know how that's going to roll out. So
Sir, welcome back.
This hot? Okay. Good evening, Chair Klein. No major permits pulled, so I'm just going to give you numbers tonight. The total number of building permits pulled in August equal to 473. 14 of those were single-family permits. 2 of them were ADUs. 0 were multifamily. 29 of those, 29 single-family homes were finaled, and our building inspectors completed 1,414 inspections. Total revenue.
Current planning.
Good evening, Chair, Commission. August was a pretty quiet month for planning, but most notably, you'll see that currently processing that would be for the commission at some future date.
Thank you, Albert. I have a question. Is there anything in current planning around bike lanes or, active type of, patient? I thought I had something in the work city around, a master plan on.
Not for current planning, but that's an excellent question that we can ask our colleagues over in the traffic engineering division and report back to the commission next month.
Excellent. Other questions for Albert? Great, thank you. Advanced planning. Keep your seat.
So, good evening, everyone. And we're currently in the process of revising those tables, sending the tables back out for public review. And it is our hope to come back to the Planning Commission to review not only the tables, but the public input received to date on that table in either October or November. Advanced Planning is currently working on the preparation of the city's municipal service review. This is a state requirement or state required document that must be prepared every 5 years or as needed. The purpose of this document is to evaluate the city's ability to provide infrastructure and services to those areas within our sphere of influence. The sphere of influence is the logical extension of the city boundaries sometime in the future. So we have another consultant group we are currently working with, and they are preparing that sensitivity study, identifying the general area, and that's key, the general area in which these cultural resources are likely to exist. And we are currently working with the Yokodehe Wutun tribe to identify a set of protocols that would.
The requirements differ in terms of the land use, but anyway, I didn't know that the Yokodehe were in this range, so that's excellent here nonetheless. Other questions? Okay, thank you. Director Morse, your report, please.
I'll start off with city council actions relating to planning commission items. On August 23rd, the council considered whether or not to authorize a general plan amendment application for the Corby battery storage proposed in the Northeast growth area. And ultimately, the council decided to not authorize that general plan amendment to move forward. And that was interesting item that would warrant watching if you were not able to watch it. And then the second item was that staff, that would be myself and Economic Development Services Director Don Burris, brought a proposal to the council to move forward with some of the initial steps toward a specific plan for the Northeast growth area. And we also asked the council for direction to make some changes to the zoning map and zoning code pretty soon to help provide some clarity about what can and can't happen up there. So as we talk later on about future items, I'll highlight how you're going to have an item pretty soon on the Northeast growth area and an update on our planning efforts. And then on September 13th, I presented a very similar presentation to the one the Planning Commission received about SB 330 in anticipation that the council will be considering their first SB 330 project on September 27th. And then Assistant Director Josh Montemayor presented an update on the implementation of our AB 1600 work, which is what the piece he presented was about the removal of the community benefit contribution requirement from our existing development agreements. And the basis for that is that the new Nexus study will capture the impact fee necessary to build out our capital facilities. We don't need additional resources, and we actually don't have the Nexus for that. So anyway, that was presented and received very positively. And then upcoming items at the next council meeting on September 27th, they will be considering the 2 appeals the city received of the Planning Commission's decision to approve the Southtown Apartments project. And they will also be considering the Fairmont Square project. I'm not sure in what order, but we will see. Going on to the next section, tentative schedule of future Planning Commission items. We will be bringing, hopefully on October 18th, but it actually might very well be the first meeting, the only meeting in November, toward early November, and there probably will be that one. We're going to bring the Northeast Growth Area map and text amendments to the Planning Commission. Part of why it's probably coming to you in November is we do want to do direct outreach to affected property owners. We don't want our outreach to be the public hearing notice. So, but anticipate that in the next couple meetings. As Tyra mentioned, we'll be bringing the urban reserve development inventory and land need forecast, really hoping you'll look at it thoroughly. We'll have public comment. Our goal, working with the development community and others, is to really get this right before we take it to the council and ask them to consider potentially unlocking the urban reserve. And then we'll have an environmental justice element workshop in October. And also foreshadowing future things, we have, when Transwestern came in a week or two ago, we've already slated it for the December Planning Commission meeting. And we're working very diligently toward bringing it here because that will be achieving the 100-day program. And that's very important to my team right now. And then announcements on the staffing side, we almost have every position filled, and I just don't even want to say that almost, but we have hired a management analyst and she's started, and we have a permit technician application out there for our building division. And we received 86 applications, which is unheard of these days. And I think 50 of them made it through the initial screen. So I'm feeling very optimistic we're going to get someone good to round out my team. And then the last thing I wanted to announce, or just give credit to, I heard credit being given to the planning division and to my department for the work on biotech and on advanced manufacturing, but I would be remiss to not acknowledge the building division. I have these two staff members who are kind of invisible to you all because they don't come here to this meeting, but building inspector Bobby Battistella and permit technician Debbie Fowler seem to take it upon themselves to ensure that the Mettler-Toledo Rainin permit through the building division, it never got stuck. I got regular updates on it. And I mean, those ladies were committed to getting this thing not just issued, but also through inspection and finals. I just want to give credit that our building division also really embraces this 100-day thing. They're not the 100 days, they're the days that follow. But already my new chief building official is meeting with Transwestern about the building permit they want to submit before the end of the year, offering a page turn. And that is the kind of business we're trying to run over there. So that was all I had tonight.
Thank you, Erin. I do have a question about this appeal. Were there one or two appeals?
For Southtown Apartments, we received two appeals. One was from the neighborhood group, captained by Alicia Minion, and the other was from the developer. The developer's appeal was they object to being required to join a CFD, and the neighbor's appeal was very similar to the points raised at the Planning Commission hearing.
Oh, you can't make anyone happy.
And the appeal on Fairmont?
That's not an appeal. You all recommended a deviation from the city's standard improvements, so the council has to take the final action on that one.
Yes.
About the appeal, I believe that project was, does that count as a meeting for them?
The appeal hearing does count as a meeting, and since there was a neighborhood meeting and a planning commission meeting, we could still have 3 more meetings, which I'm pretty much hoping we don't have 3 more meetings, but we're fine with the council meeting. It'll be the 3rd public meeting associated with that project.
And this is our second 330 project?
Southtown is our first.
Okay.
We have an application for an SB 330 for North Village 2. That's kind of a backup plan to North Village 1. We also have one for another Discovery Builders project. I can't remember what the name of it is right now. And I think we have a total of 4 so far. So they're coming. Some of them will be approved at the staff level. Some of them have to go to council. But we're going to get good at this.
Thank you, Director. We'll now go to commissioner comments. It's that time. Does anyone wish to make a comment? Okay, we're adjourned. Oh. I just looked around. Oh, please, go ahead. Commissioner Wilkerson, keep us from leaving.
I'd like the commission to take up a conversation and add to the agenda to replacing Chair Klein of the Planning Commission. I'm looking for a second on that.
Excuse me?
I would like to make a motion that the Planning Commission look into replacing Chair Klein as chair of the Planning. Is there any discussion or anyone else?
Yeah, okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Wilkerson to look into replacing Chair Klein.
We're making it an
Should I?
agenda
I think since I'm personally implicated, like, am I supposed to be, this is brand new to me.
No, so customarily, like you guys remember, after new commissioners are appointed, we have election of officers. The chair and the vice chair of the commission are elected. And at that time, all commissioners are allowed to participate in the election of the vice chair and the chair and the nominations for those roles. So I think for a point of clarification, it sounds like there's a motion being put forward to agendize a reelection for the chair of the commission.
Yes,
And
that is it.
so decide. And I do not think that there is any conflict in you participating in the vote or discussion of that, Chair Klein.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So there's a motion from Commissioner Wilkerson to agendize an election at the earliest, at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Then moved by Commissioner Wilkerson, seconded by Vice Chair Fortney. Will the clerk please call the roll? I'm sorry. Before we do that, am I allowed to, I'm just like a little surprised. Am I allowed to ask for discussion? Okay. Would the maker of the motion like to?
I think the way that meetings have been handled and ran should be discussed and looked at. And I think the way that there has been bias from the chair regarding certain projects should be discussed. And with the continuation of my phone being rang and my family members being pulled aside and extended family members on the street regarding how this commission is acting, I personally would like to have this agendized and discussed with the public that have an opportunity to come down here and express how they feel. And I believe that is their right. And as the commission, I believe we should put that forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilkerson. Are there other comments? Vice Chair Forney, did you?
That was said there. Second was to bring it back for open discussion.
I'm happy to. I mean, yeah. Commissioner Burgess, did you?
Yeah, you know, I don't know. The meeting regarding Southtown was a little chaotic, but however, a motion for consideration of reelection without having any discussion. And I guess my question would be, has there been anything afforded to Chair Klein or to improve how we run our meeting, be more effective, more efficient? I do have concern about bias, but it's all the way through. As an example, the last hearing, there was a comment about an apology to a developer who was, apparently there was an incident out in the parking lot. However, I think there were plenty of people here, city staff, that were in a sense attacked. So I'm not, you know, that to me shows bias, an apology to a developer when an apology should be to those in attendance, not a specific person. So I've conveyed that before. I am a little shocked at a motion right now without any discussion, and I don't know how that looks like for a commission. I will say, if there's any need to look at the commission, I would point to Commissioner Labonte, right, who is an absolute nice guy, but has not been here, right? Commissioner Klein, you have been here. And I do think that there are things that we can do, but as a commission, I'm not certain a motion go about that. So I will say that. Again, I've expressed those concerns to staff, just all the way across the board. And I know individuals have relationships with developers and applicants. I don't have those relationships. I'm pretty even keel. I don't say a lot. I say what's necessary. But again, I look at the commission as a whole and what we can improve upon. And I think we can improve, absolutely, 100%. But I think it starts with those who are here. So I will point to the empty chair before I talk about or entertain a motion, although there's already a motion out there. So I have concerns all the way through, honestly. So I will state that.
Excuse me. I would like to go down, if that's okay.
Yeah, I just, for the commission, I just want to make sure that we're understanding what's been motioned, and that's to bring this item back to talk about a reelection of the chair. So what we're talking about is whether or not we want to have further discussion about this. So I don't want you guys to go into too much of a rabbit hole of whether or not you need to have the chair reelection. This is just agendizing that further discussion for the public. So
I do have a question about agendizing during commissioner comments. Would this be new business, or, I mean, so like, is it typical to have a vote during the commission comments?
So if the planning commissioner policies and procedures don't have a direct procedure outlined for this. But when there isn't something that speaks directly to a commission act, I will refer to the city council policies and procedures on how to conduct business. And this is the time in the city council's policies and procedures to bring up new items that a council member would want agendized on a future agenda. It's during council comments. So this is the appropriate time in the meeting to bring this up. And basically what the policy procedure says is that any council member that wants something brought on a future agenda can raise it during council member comments. And if the majority of the council wants that issue agendized, then staff will put it on the agenda and bring it back. So applying, just apply that same process.
And Commissioner Wilkerson, if you don't mind, I just would like to go through, and we'll definitely circle back to you.
Can I ask a question?
Commissioner Vargas, please.
So let's say, for an example, we do put to a vote and it does pass. What does that look like for the public to come here and talk about that with Chair Klein present? I'm a little worried about discussion about firing squads and putting one of our commissioners up from the firing squad.
So normally when we do the election of officers for the commission, that is put on the agenda during, at the end of the meeting during commissioner comments. This really is the commission's decision on who they want to be the officer of the commission, who they would like to be the chair and who they would like to be the vice chair. And so, but that being said, anything on agenda that's been noticed, that the public may comment on anything that's on an agenda. We would not be putting this up for a public hearing or planning commission business. This would be a commission act, and what I would foresee as being primarily a discussion amongst the commission about how to best run the commission and how to best manage the commission. And that is intended to be a decision of the commission and not the public. However, that being said, if it's on the agenda, the public can comment.
Vargas.
Thank you. A little concerned about that, given what transpired at downtown. I know it was a bit chaotic, I think a bit dysfunctional. I'm a little concerned about creating more dysfunction. I wonder if there's a different remedy, there's a different path for us to discuss improving the commission as a whole. Yeah, I'll say that. So I'll leave it.
Commissioner Lightfoot.
Thank you for insight, and I appreciate what you had to say, and taking it to heart, and I agree. On all your, I'll just
Commissioner Flynn. Vice Chair Portney. And if you don't mind, I'm going to go.
Yeah, go down the roll call. That's cool. I think most of my comments and questions would come under if we have that discussion as an agenda item, so I stay out of that rabbit hole.
And I second that instead of discussing it here, discuss it properly on the agenda.
So I am happy to have this conversation about how we can be more effective. I don't think it's one person who's in an appointed position alone to make everyone feel like things are running really as well as they could. My job is to run this meeting and do it with dignity. And in my view, it would be supremely unfair for someone who's been put through what I already have in terms of the core claim of some kind of a bias, which is very interesting because I'm a public servant. I've never made any money on being a planning commissioner. As a deputy attorney general, as an attorney, as a member of this community, I'm here not because I'm a developer. And there's a lot I have to learn about how to run a meeting, of course. I'm proud to be the first Black chair of this commission. I think the thing that I would emphasize is my phone is always open. And I am troubled if anyone feels that they can't call me to ever talk about how to better run a meeting. And I would humbly listen to whatever advice anyone wants to offer. These these meetings, like the one that we had, was very difficult to hear. I don't know how many of us, raise your hand if you've been to a planning commission meeting where it was completely packed. And you have this brand new state law that you're trying to figure out and explain to the community. You know, I just turned 40, or I'm barely 40. So I have not been to many of those meetings, but I don't discount that it was not ideal. I would discount whose fault it was. My core conviction is as with the First Amendment. And that's like the one soft spot that I have is I have a hard time telling people I'm taking away their franchise, telling them that they can't speak, limiting their time, or apologizing to people and lifting them up above others who don't have the same franchise. You know, you hear a lot, we've heard a lot after the issues with George Floyd about civility. For a long time, civility has been used to quiet people who don't have franchise. And I believe that that's that's only half the story with civility. I mean, to be civil among each other, as well as civil in public. There's some things that you can't teach people. I mean, so if people come to a meeting and they're shouting from the dais, it's one thing. If people are sitting around, or people are sitting in our dais in a very tight room, and I'm asking them to be civil, there's only so many things I can do. I'm very happy to have a conversation with, do we clear the room out? Like, are there tools that we can have if we're dealing with a very, very raucous meeting? And so I know that maybe my thoughts have been all over the place. I was not planning on having this talk tonight. I've had a very long couple of weeks, but I'm going to take a pause there. I see other people want to speak. Mr. Wilkerson, your light is lit up. Commissioner Vargas, so was yours. So I'm going to go to Commissioner Wilkerson and then back to Commissioner Vargas, if that's okay.
Again, the motion is just to have the discussion, which I think is what we're doing now. I think we've all learned something from that meeting. And I think moving forward, it would be best to have this type of discussion on an agendized item, because there are questions that I have, and I'll be the one to say it, to staff, to us other commissioners, and I have called. I did not get a response the last time I called you. I had a text message, you were on vacation, I was on vacation. However, we have had discussion. But this commission isn't about myself or any of the six of us. There have been precedents to where the commission has apologized to members of the community before. There has been precedent that the city council has done it. I felt how that person was treated. I would not want anyone else to be treated that way, to be assaulted outside in a parking lot over an agendized item on the planning commission regarding a 10-acre parcel.
I think we're headed down.
The rabbit hole, 100%. And that's why I think the discussion and the agendized item should be held where we all have time to think about the motion, and we all have time to think about how we could better move forward. And if maybe there's a training that could be attached to it, that would be fantastic as well. But I'm sticking by the motion of having the discussion. There's a second. And I think we're, after Commissioner Vargas, if anyone else, I think we're ready for a vote.
If I can ask of city staff, is there anything that can be afforded to Commissioner, to Chair Klein, or to the commission about proving how we run a meeting, proving the process? Is that a possibility from a city staff perspective?
Thank you, Commissioner Vargas. One of the things about staffing a planning commission, which both Andrea and I do, is that we make available pre-meetings ahead of every meeting. And we see that as one of the most regular recurring opportunities to support the chair and the vice chair in some cases in their success running these meetings. And then the other thing is follow up after meetings. But I mean, really, in my experience running a different planning commission for 4 years, as from the staff side, the pre-meeting and the open invitation to connect and a lot of conversations that occur over the course of the month, that's when a lot of the training occurs. It's hard to do it in a public setting with everyone out. It's primarily done through pre-meetings, post-meetings, and regular recurring conversation.
Has that been afforded?
Yes.
With that, I think the motion from Commissioner Wilkerson is to have a conversation about, a vote at the next meeting?
I think what the request is to agendize a discussion regarding election of a new chair.
Okay.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's my understanding of the motion.
Moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Vargas. Commissioner Lightfoot.
Abstain.
Commissioner Rudine.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkerson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Courtney.
Yes.
Chair Klein.
No.
So in order for this to be placed on an agenda, majority of the commission of the quorum that we have here today would have to vote yes. 3 yeses, 1 no, and 2 abstain. So motion doesn't carry.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, you're in commissioner comments, so you can make a new motion for something you'd like on a future agenda.
I would like to make a motion regarding how meetings are run, the effectiveness of us as a commission as a whole, the pre and post meeting with city staff, and the attendance and discussion regarding that, those meetings. So I would like a full on the cart table regarding how we all can be better as a unit, how the meetings can be run better, and how there could be more participation in the pre and post meetings with staff. Because that, as we heard from Ms. Morris, that is where the training happens. That is where the learning occurs. And if we're not having those, then we're not learning. We're not learning tonight. We're discussing tonight. We aren't learning regarding how to be better. Is there a second on that?
Point of information, is this about whether or not Aaron and I have meetings? That's what the...
Absolutely not. I would just like it to be a discussion item as well, so that we heard regarding, have there been afforded time pre and post to have meetings? And that is where learning occurs. And we're talking about learning and becoming better as a unit. I think we all could be better.
For clarification, the motion is to actually have the discussion in regards to the meeting rather than us violating a Brown Act.
Yes.
By commissioners contacting each other or having a serial meeting. So
I second that motion.
Can I make a friendly amendment? I'd like to have a meeting regarding the operations of the commission to discuss how the commission as a whole can be more effective. Is there a way, because it sounds like what we're trying to do is figure out how we can run these meetings more effectively, how we can be more representative of the community. And is that something, would you accept that amendment, or is that?
Sure.
So I can get behind that.
I don't really care if you can get behind it. There's a motion, there's a second. Get a vote.
Are you okay with that amendment? Because you seconded it. So the amendment is as to the operations that we, at the next meeting, we would have a discussion as to the overall operations and effectiveness. Yeah, okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Vargas,
Yes.
Commissioner Lightfoot,
Yes.
Commissioner Rudine,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkerson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Courtney, Chair Klein.
Yes.
It's good to be my commission. Thank you much staff, because a lot, but for this, again, fantastic job.
So I would like to make a comment. I want to make plain that I will try to do better in running these meetings. And I also want to make sure that the staff understands how much I appreciate the work that you do here. And to the extent anyone has ever felt unsafe because of the way that I'm running this meeting, or things that I could have done better, I deeply apologize for putting anyone in any situation where they felt like I was personally somehow making them feel unsafe. So with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.